Leaders out there, hello.
Now we're live. Hold on.
Hello.
Now we're live. Are we live? You talk into that sec, just like
Looks good. Hello, hello.
Okay. You're happy enough with the mic? Sound.
So,
Okay, so the last time I did this with you in the back of the van inside the house,
yes.
I didn't get massive feedback from it, other than people really enjoyed it, they loved it, thought it was great. Happy days, brilliant. But Mr. McQuillan, past guest and friend of the show, he said something that I thought was fucking very illuminating. He said he really enjoyed it. He loved the, 20 minutes on a certain topic. I know that kind of fell apart a little bit, but he loved that whole concept.
Yeah.
But what he didn't like, and I can totally get where he's coming from, was we'd finish talking about something, and then I'd hit stop, and then we'd have a bit of a chat and reset, and then we would go into the next topic. And while we were recording the next segment, I'd say something like, between clips, Pork, we were talking about this.
Yeah.
And Ivor, as the viewer or the listener, is at home going, "Oh fuck, is what we is talking about?"
Yeah, frustrating. Yeah.
Exactly. So the idea that I'm toying with now at the minute is that we do what we've done now. So I don't turn off the camera for another hour or 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever length of time it takes, but that we might do 20 minutes on mugs, and then maybe move on to something else.
Okay, and keep it recording all of
keep
the
whole thing,
okay,
absolutely
yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to watch the 3 hour thing from start to finish,
or something.
no, but not even timestamp it. But if somebody wants to watch, if somebody just wants to hit play and watch us for 3 hours, they can do that.
Okay.
But if somebody's only interested in the God bit, they can click on the 20-minute God video, which would be just me and you talking about it.
Yes.
Do you know what kind of way?
Yeah, I like it, yeah.
So
yeah.
the podcast proper has already started.
Yes.
Hello, welcome. So that's basically what I'm thinking of doing.
Great job, best of both worlds.
I think so,
Yeah,
because one thing that I have to get better at is chopping up my content.
Yes.
Because it's great having a 2 or 3 hour conversation with you or anybody else. That's fantastic. But you're not really going to hook somebody in. So you're not really going to hook a new person in to a 3 hour video.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
But you hooked them into a 10-minute segment, and they're like, "Oh, I really
I
enjoyed
want
that.
more, yeah.
Here's another 10-minute one.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus, these are really good. Fucking deadly. There's a 2 hour one.
Yeah.
Do you know that kind of way? Because I find that now, especially with Rogan stuff, I'll see a clip on YouTube and I'll go, "Oh, that's interesting," and I'll watch 5 minutes of it. If I don't like it, I'll move on. If I do like it, I'll go onto fucking Spotify and I'll listen to the whole thing.
Yes.
But without that initial teaser, I suppose, it's kind of hard to it's hard to judge what something that's 3 hours long is going to be by a blurb. I spoke to Porrick Riley and we covered tables, cups, microphones, and signs.
Yeah.
Do you know what kind of way?
And God.
And God. And transgender pronouns and God knows what else. We didn't talk at all about what we might talk about. And I've been thinking about this over the last couple of days, and I don't know if you have any thoughts on it, but I've purposefully strayed away from COVID-related stuff.
Oh, fuck.
I know. But that's what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of going on COVID.
Oh, whatever you like.
Because it's been a year and I haven't really covered it at all.
Yeah.
And I think
there's enough coverage.
there is enough coverage. There's probably too much coverage, though, is there?
Look, it depends on what you're listening to, I suppose. But yeah, there's plenty of people talking about it.
But what I get frustrated with in relation to COVID is anytime I hear anybody talking about it, or anytime I look into a news article or go onto YouTube and there's a million different people talking about it all the time, it's always today's numbers and in the last week and since the start of the year, and there's been no. Now, it's more than likely out there, but there certainly isn't a lot of the numbers over the last, let's say, 14 months.
Yeah.
Like, I've never seen the breakdown. I've never seen a graph of the Irish numbers, say, January, February, March. So you can actually see the year in a snapshot.
And give me the positive news. Tell me how many people recovered. Not how many people. It's just numbers of who got it with no context. No who was actually sick, who was hospitalised. Well, they'll tell you who was hospitalised usually, but I mean, it's frustrating. Like, I think the day they sent the kids back to school, RT released a report about how many kids got coronavirus in the past 4 weeks. It's just like, what?
But maybe that was accidental timing, Pork.
I'd say so, yeah.
That was nothing to do with like clicks or driving engagement or fueling rage in people.
Yeah, like send them back, but be afraid. Like, it's so frustrating. As far as I'm aware, I actually only looked up the figures not so long ago. I think close to 1 million people in Ireland have already had coronavirus.
1 million?
Yeah. And like, what? Not to fucking obviously. People die, it's tragic, it is in a distant world heading that way one way or the other, but I think 1 million have died. I think a couple of thousand deaths, and
1 million have had it. There's been a couple of thousand
yeah,
deaths.
sorry, did I said the wrong way. So yeah, look, it's positive. Like, a lot of people have had it and they're getting better, and I mean, it's not something to be too worried about as far as I can see. It's a bad new flu that we're going to have to learn how to live with. So yeah, the numbers thing is just, I don't know, people are way too hooked up to it, like just freaking out.
Yeah, it's funny because my mum, so she'd be in the kind of endangered category, for want of a better term. She's an older lady, you know.
Yeah.
So now, don't get me wrong, she's fit and healthy and high-spirited and active and all the rest of it. She doesn't have a sedentary lifestyle. She doesn't have a bad diet. She doesn't have, fucking an underlying health illness or anything. She's just a little bit older. Like, I mean, I'm fucking touching 40 and she's my mum, so she's not in her 20s.
Yes,
kind of way. But I drop the shopping up to her every so often, and I do have contact with her. And there's times when she'll ask me to leave stuff at the front door, and she'll wave at me out the window. And there's times when she'll say, "Sure, come on in, and you can sit in the end of the kitchen, and I'll sit in the sitting room, and we'll have a chat." And the difference between that is how much of the news she's been watching.
Yeah, it's sad, isn't it? Not sad, but it's, I don't know. Yeah, I've felt that same thing myself. People are kind of like really following the rules to the nth degree, sterilising their fruit and their shopping, and then, the next week or two they're kind of a bit more lax about it. And I think because it's a shifting goalpost all the time, so people are kind of left just confused. They don't know what rules are meant to be following this week to change the next week. It's flatten the curve at the start, then it's a new thing, zero COVID policies, and the goalposts keep shifting, so it's difficult for people. It really is. I think you're probably better off tuning out of it as much as possible, because a lot of it's just fear-mongering and panic porn. That's a new term I've heard recently.
Panic pouring.
Panic porn.
Panic porn.
Yeah.
Pouring panic porn. And that's not by accident. I mean, these things, and I know this myself from having some sort of an online platform. I mean, if you saucy something up, you get more views.
Yeah.
It's that simple. And the perfect analogy that I have for this is, I've never promoted the whole off the lead thing other than just produce content and pump it out there. I've never paid for ads. I've never done anything like that. I've never encouraged people to like, other than every 20th episode I might say, "Oh, don't forget to like, share and subscribe," blah blah blah, something like that. And my YouTube channel at the minute, I think it has about maybe 18 or 19,000 views, but 17,000 of those views are from the one clickbait video I made.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And it just goes to show, like, I mean, if you're doing this, and I do intend to do it professionally, like, I'd love to make all of this what I do for a living.
Full-time, yeah.
And it's becoming increasingly apparent that in order to actually make this financially viable, you have to do the whole clickbait thing. You just have to. And
I think, like, when it's good stuff, it's a different form. Fair enough, it's clickbait, but like, if it's something worth listening to, I suppose maybe every clickbait content creator thinks their clickbait is worth listening to, but like if it's good stuff, I think, and as you said, it's kind of like a segue maybe into the full podcast or something. I think it's different. Like I like watching, as you said, the Joe Rogan clips or Lex Fridman clips or that kind of thing, and it gives you a sense of maybe who the person that they have on is about, so you get a feel of it without, you know, committing to 3 or 4 hours. So yeah, I think it's not clickbait like you get with fucking, you know, spam ads, do this 3 tricks before bedtime and increase your love life by 100%, all this kind of nonsense. It's good stuff, so I don't yeah, you could call it clickbait, but I think it's different than what maybe most people would consider clickbait.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I've said this on the solos before, and I've actually asked my audience to try and help me with this, and I've asked anyone that will listen to help me with this. So clickbait, if you look up the definition, I can't remember it offhand, but you'll get the sentiment. So it's a derogatory term. I'm not even a derogatory term, but clickbait is misleading.
Yeah,
that's what it is by definition.
Yeah, the title says one thing and then the video is kind of another thing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. But I think that there's room for a term that would cover what you might call legitimate clickbait.
Yeah.
So for one of the videos I did, or I converted our last conversation in the back of the van to video. So it's in order to upload audio to YouTube. Let's say you just have an audio clip and you want to upload it to YouTube. You have to make a video out of it. YouTube won't let you just upload audio.
Oh, okay.
So I have a couple of videos, you know, quote unquote videos of our conversations, and in one of them we discussed the plight of poor people, basically, and the poverty trap. That's generally speaking what we were talking about in this 10-minute clip. But the caption that I put on it was, "What's wrong with poor people?"
Okay, yeah.
Because it's like, wait, what's wrong with poor people? Oh my god!
Yeah.
But you nearly have to rile people up to fucking.
That's more like
deeper.
An attention grabber, though. Well, it's like clickbait, but I don't know. There's something a bit more. It's more honest or something. It's more like just an attention grab, I suppose.
Yeah, I like that now. Even just an attention grab, as opposed to the term clickbait.
Yeah. Because it's not. When I think of clickbait, I think of just nonsense, like absolute nonsense. You click in. Whatever, it has what you think is an important headline, like fucking, I don't know, I remember at the start of the coronavirus there's like stupid things doing the rounds, like everybody trying to freak everyone else out, like, oh, the airport has exploded, and you click in and it's like a picture of like some hardcore porn or something. It's
yeah.
That's when I think of clickbait, I think it's just absolute nonsense, like just a waste of time. But podcast clips, it's a different thing. I think, it's like a clip more than a clickbait. It's like a.
But it's not even the clipness though, because it's the thumbnail.
Oh, the thumbnails go with it.
It's the picture and the writing.
Yeah, the attention grab plus the.
It's what makes you click into it.
Yes. So it's clickbait.
It is. That's the thing. Like, that's the thing. It's fucking clickbait. Like, it's gas though.
Yeah.
But it's so. I don't know. It's so pervasive and it's so manipulative, and I don't know. Where does it end? Do you know that kind of way?
Yeah.
And I think, in a sense, it's kind of like fake news. Hopefully it'll run its course. Like, I've been somewhat of a supporter of fake news for a long time, because what fake news is. Jesus, what is it even? But it's quote unquote news that's not real, or that's false, verifiably false, or whatever it is.
Or
alternative facts.
Counter to the mainstream, even sometimes.
Exactly. But I don't know what it is about it. So it'll run its course, hopefully. So what I like about fake news is, if there's loads of fake news out there, maybe people will think, I don't know what to believe anymore. So I'll only listen to this, and this credible source. And I'll continue to look for more credible sources.
Yes.
And clickbait is kind of the same as that. It's like, you can't look on the internet. You can't go on the internet without being misled by all these wankers, and you never know what you're clicking into anymore. And again, from now on, I'm only going to click into reputable people that I know who don't engage in all this bullshit.
Yeah, well, the light shines so much brighter, doesn't it, when it's just surrounded by a sea of black and nonsense. Like, someone who is actually speaking truth or speaking honestly, they're going to shine that much more when it's just in a sea of nonsense.
I think so, because I think that's probably in part why the likes of Rogan and the other people, like, I know no one else has done it quite like Rogan has, but you mentioned Lex Fridman. I'm a big fan of his, and there's loads of different people with popular podcast platforms out there, and I think part of their success has to be put down to the fact that what you might call mainstream media, whether it be TV or newspapers, because the digitalness of the world has just left them for dead. They've had to engage in all these things to try and keep their market share. Do you know that kind of way?
Yeah, for sure. I see even RT and BBC have podcasts, but they kind of are. They're more like interviews and things. It's still kind of like the old format, only on the internet, but you can see them trying to adapt somewhat, but I reckon they're way behind, or I don't know if they'll ever survive what's going on.
You see, and that's there's something I love about that, because you can't fake what we're doing.
Yeah.
You can't imitate this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you've either got two independently thinking people with their own views that are liable to say God knows what.
Yeah.
Or you have people who are reading off scripts and it's contrived and it's
there's
an agenda and all the
way
rest of it.
more representative of real life, isn't it? It's a conversation. We're thinking out loud here. We don't actually know what's going to happen next. I think people like that. That's what they tune into podcasts for, to some degree.
To a large degree, I think. Yeah, and
chaos,
especially what I do.
Yeah. Absolute chaos.
Absolute chaos. With a fancy background.
I mean that with the utmost respect. I love, I do.
No, granted. And you actually commented on here before you walked in. What you said was, what you like about it is it's plain. So there's the logo, basically. I have to update this. I want to change Provoking Conversations to not just a podcast. But aside from that, plain background, table, 2 microphones, and a fucking cup of water each. Like. And what you said was, what you love about the layout and the plainness of it is it draws your attention to the content.
Yes.
Do you know that kind of way? Like, we're not particularly dressed up either. Do you know that kind of way? We're not in suits and ties. We didn't, as you said when you come in, where the fuck is hair and makeup? But there's something to that. The plainness of it brings out the content.
Yeah, I'd say even more the creators of the content, the ghosts, we're the centre of attention. And
and proper order.
Yeah. They're not just, maybe you could make it one more level abstract, if you could call it that. It's consciousness is the centre of attention here. It's two individual consciousnesses kind of just clashing off each other and seeing what happens, and I love it. Like, compared to scripted stuff, look, there's a place for well thought out ideas, and someone wrote a book, get them in and let's talk about the book you wrote. But there's definitely a place for this, just free flowing conversation, and who knows what's gonna happen next. Like, because that's life for me. That's what life is. Like, it's you just, who knows what's going to happen next all the time. Like, it's like hide and seek. You don't know what's around the next corner.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And it's funny, you have me thinking of living your life by a script. So imagine you woke up in the morning and the first thing you did was you reached over and you went, "Morning, babe, how are you?" Do you know that kind of way? Like, Jesus, that'd get boring. And I think we've had that on television. We've had that exact same thing on our screens forever.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, that's another reason why kind of independent. And that's another thing I must ask you about. What would you call this? Is this like an independent chat show? Is this an indie label only in relation to conversation as opposed to media?
Yeah,
or not media, music?
Yeah,
because
like
we have indie labels. And another thing that I spoke about on the solos was this idea that the whole point of having an indie label is that you, as an independent artist, you can go to them and you can go, "Look, this is what we do, this is what we like, we want to have an album and we need someone to promote it, because we're not business people, we're artists. You're business people, you have a platform, will you promote us?" And they go, "Yeah, we like your sound, we think you're doing something different, we like your influences and we like the way you're bringing this. Go write an album." And you go and you write your album. But the whole point of an indie label is, when you bring that album back to them, they're not going to look at it and go, this won't sell, pal.
Yeah.
The teenage girls aren't going to like this, and it's the teenage girls that are driving the industry.
Yeah.
And in that space, you're allowed to have a bad album. So they'll give you, let's say you have one successful album, you give them your demo album, and they go, oh fuck yeah, we'll produce this, no problem. And then you say to them, right, we're writing another one. And they go, okay, well, on the back of your first successful album, we'll give you a 5-album deal, just hypothetically off the top of my head. Within that 5-album deal, what's implicit there is you're allowed to write and record 4 bad albums. And maybe one of them will be successful, but they give you that creative space to make mistakes. You don't get that with the big guys. Like, you need every song on your album practically has to be a hit, or at least 1 in 3 has to be a hit.
Tick all the boxes, and
exactly. And so that means that the people who are actually creating this music, they're, oh no, that won't work. I love it. It's really original, and it's, you're breaking new ground, but it's too new, it's too different. We have to tone it down. We have to wedge it into the 3.5-minute radio segment, and it becomes contrived.
Yeah, which is awful, because for me, music is, again, it's like this. It's representative of life. Like, it's like a mandala, layered patterns of meaning. And I mean, if art isn't pushing the boundaries and trying to get our consciousness expanded, like, it's just, I don't know, it's just
not art.
Yeah, it's blind ego, fucking ego, just following ego, and it's just nonsense. Like, it's awful. If anything, it's just brainwashing nonsense, half the music that's out there. It's absolute awful muck, like, awful muck.
Is there anyone doing it good? Because you're a musician, you're an avid guitar player.
Yeah,
did you sing? Do you sing?
A little bit, yeah, not very well.
Did you sing in a band?
Back in the day when we were kids, yeah, but that's something trying to, I don't know, work on is right. I'm trying to free my voice. That's how Mom said it before. I like that. Trying to free it. Yeah, 'cause it's a confidence thing, I think, to a large degree. Like, I think everybody can sing to some degree, but it's you're bearing your soul, like, and it's uncomfortable, and you can hear any little doubt in someone when they sing. Their doubt is just projected out there. So it's a lot of, for me, singing is like all about letting go and surrendering to something greater than yourself, just yourself.
The scary thing about it for you, though, as well, you'd be looking to sing your own lyrics, is it?
That, or even singing someone else's lyrics. What matter? It's just singing.
But I think singing your own lyrics compounds that,
big time, yeah.
Exposing yourself.
Yeah, it's definitely your soul on show. Like, you're bearing it all, I think. So it's fantastic. Like, and I think even if you can't hold a note, if you're just singing with your heart, like, even if you're not in tune or in key, people will just recognize, to be happy that you're doing your thing. Like, but if there's doubt and a lack of confidence, I think that's what people hear the most. Like, it's interesting singing. Like, it's I don't know, it pushes you out of your comfort zone big time.
Very much so. And I can speak a bit about this because of
the Mother Days.
Did you listen to that?
Yeah. Awesome. Looks like.
Yeah. Try and embarrass me.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
not gonna happen, is
not
it?
really.
Yeah,
I mean, and there's me that loves my analogies. There's something about that, and the idea that I'm quite self-critical. So when I get criticised by people, it's like, you're going to have to try harder. Do you know that kind of way? And
I've already thought of that one.
And my version's way worse than your version. But there's something to that, though, because the reason that I did it was, like, look, it was a joke and it was a laugh and it was a bit of crack or whatever else. But there was a far deeper reason for doing it, and you touched on it a bit there. The idea of kind of, you're exposing yourself and you're doing this, and I like the idea of sometime in the future recording my own song and singing, maybe not singing, but certainly rapping my own stuff. Yeah. And like, how much more likely am I to do that now, having put up Mother Lover?
Oh, for sure. Can't get much worse.
No. Fuck you. I'd like to see you hit those high notes.
It's awesome. I've noticed in a few times difficult experiences with on my favourite topic conversation, psychedelics, where singing has just, like, I'm in just the throes of a really bad experience, and then just start singing anything at all. I like Terence McKenna's suggestion of anything, just row your boat gently down the stream, anything at all, and it changes the whole experience when you just get things that'll make you connect to your breathing and everything else, which will just calm you down and help you release and relax and go with the flow. And I think again with psychedelics, it's all very much, it's like life condensed into infinitesimally small amounts of time. You live an eternity in a second, like, and that eternity can be blissful or it can be hell. And it's the same in our everyday ordinary consciousness. Like, you can make your day a little living hell, or you can make it heaven on earth for everyone around you if you want. But I think singing is vital. Like, it really can lift your spirits, like, big time. Can bring you to heavenly places. I think music is powerful. It can bring you the other way as well. You know, you can get music to depress you if you want. It's kind of like a drug nearly in and of itself.
Very much so. I can't remember. Remind me. Did we talk about what Aidan said about my brother Aidan? What he said about listening to Eminem when we had our last chat.
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
So just to bring whoever mightn't have listened to that up to speed, my brother out in Qatar, Aidan, I can't remember how it came up, but we were talking about running tunes. That's what it was. He's gotten into running recently, and I was asking what's he listening to, and he sent over a few tunes, and I was like, oh, deadly, I hadn't listened to that running. I was looking forward to listening to this, and I sent him back a couple of my running tunes, and I also said I listen to a lot of Eminem when I'm out running as well. Like, it gets me, it's steaming up the hill,
Yeah.
And he just mentioned in passing that he doesn't listen to a lot of Eminem anymore because he noticed that it made him angry. And I was like, fuck, like, you're right. And I would have known for decades that music affects your mood. But I never thought that listening to hundreds of hours of Eminem giving out and, being all full of fucking rage and rapping about either killing his wife or his mother or all this kind of stuff might have an effect over time.
Yeah, for sure. So funny. You just kind of get used to it, I suppose. And to a large extent, you kind of start filtering it out once you're kind of it's like smoking a cigarette even, the first one you have, you'd be fucking Jesus feeling the effects of it. When you smoked your 100th one, it's kind of like you don't even notice it anymore, but it's certainly still affecting you. So it's like, take a break from whatever it is, rap music or something, and then you'll notice a month later you listen to the same songs, like, oh, Jesus, that's kind of fucking, you'll hear something maybe you were kind of tuning out, or
even feel it. Like, you might feel like, if you haven't listened to, let's say, angry music for 6 months or even a month, and then you listen to the angriest thing, you'll probably feel your heartbeat. Do you know, like, you'll feel, you'll feel amped up nearly, because it obviously does amp you up.
Big time.
But it's funny though, because I was chatting to Aidan about that, and we spoke about it before, but you touched on the opposite of it. So the benefits of listening and singing, like, there's a tune I love to fucking sing, Me That Can't Sing. That was the first tune at my fucking wedding as well. Fahrenheit by Queen.
Oh yes,
I love belting out that tune, and it does something for my fucking soul.
Yeah,
do you know,
awesome,
it really does. Like,
yeah.
And when I'm in the shower and the doors close and the fucking whatever, the bathroom doors closed, the fan is on, so there's the background noise. It's a loud enough shower, so there's a, for me at least, I need a din to concentrate.
Yes.
Like, you often hear people saying in order to meditate you need a quiet space. I can't handle a quiet space, because in a quiet space I'll hear a mouse fart.
Yeah.
I hear everything. Yeah. And I remember hearing before about lads who take penalty kicks in rugby. I presume it's the same for soccer. But what the rugby lads say, because in rugby stadiums, like, you'll hear a fucking pin drop.
Yeah, it's very respectful. There's no booing or...
It is, but the kickers hate it.
Yeah.
Because if everyone's roaring and screaming, you don't hear anything.
Yeah.
But if the place is quiet, it's like, oh, fuck. you can't help but remember there's 40,000 people staring at me doing this really important thing.
This is it. And it is a powerful analogy, that as well, kind of what we're talking about. Just that need to be able to let go of yourself, to be able to do anything that's out of the ordinary, I suppose. If you want to kick that extremely difficult goal or penalty, or you want to sing that song, or you just have to let go of yourself. Like, it's so weird. It's to gain things, you have to let go. It just seems paradoxical, but that seems to be the way life manifests.
Very much so. Couldn't agree with you more. And I think that the people who've really broke boundaries, let's say just in keeping with music, so I don't know, David Bowie or fucking your man at Queen, whatever his name is, and people like that who've really done kind of groundbreaking work, they're not conservatives.
No, freaks, like.
Well, they are
in the
like,
best
you know,
possible sense.
Absolutely. But they've lived a life of, you know, being, I suppose, being looked down upon by a lot of people for being weird or being freaks or being whatever. But it's from that you get something.
Yeah, freedom. Like, it's free. There's a lot of freedom in allowing yourself to be a weirdo. Like, there really is, because we're strange creatures. We don't know how strange we are, I think.
It's funny, though, because something that I've been thinking a lot about recently is bullying. And you can see, obviously, where I went to with bullying, from being, you know, weird and being yourself and being expressive and all the rest of it. Like, bullying isn't a Navan thing. It's not an Irish thing. It's not a European thing. It's a human thing. And it's kind of considered to be, and I was about to say rightfully so, but I don't know. That's what I'm just trying to do. That's where I'm going with this. Is it an inherently bad thing? Is it always a bad thing? I mean, it must serve some fucking purpose if it's so ubiquitous cross-culturally.
I think it's like, why is there evil in the world? Not to equate bullying with, you know, pure evil, but I think something Dostoevsky said was better to choose evil than to have no choice at all. And I think there's something really deeply existential about that. Like, it's, if we didn't have choice, what's the point in existing? Like, we're kind of, if we'd just be automatons, like, we'd be robots if you didn't have the choice to bully another person, if you didn't have the choice to be an asshole or to be a good person. It's what's the point? You don't. And I think, bullies play their part. Like, it toughens people. Like, if you have to not grow a thick skin, but like, it's, I think there's room for it. Like, the world as it manifests, the consciousness, it can go anywhere it wants. Like, it can be anything it wants. So, and it's always able to surprise itself. Like, you don't know what's going to happen next. So, yeah, I think there's room for bullies. There's room for saints and sinners. Like, that seems to be the whole game. Like, there's no bullies. You know, it seems strange, but, you know, there has to be Hitlers in the world and Stalins, and not that there has to be, but I mean, that choice has to be there. Better we choose
not to take that choice. Yeah.
But without the choice, there's no existence. Like, there's no white without black. There's no, and vice versa. There's no life without death. There's no being without non-being. So I think it's all yin and yang. Like, I don't know what the opposite of a bully is, but, you know, I think they have their place. Like, better we don't go that route, but like, there's lessons to be learned there for the bully and for the people who are being bullied. There's something for both of them to learn in them scenarios.
It's mad, you've me head spinning here, but one thing I want to put to you is, so bullying is deemed as being inherently bad. So is fighting. But, like, we've martial arts schools, we have fighting camps, we have places you go to compete in fights. I wonder if people were trained to be bullies, would they bully people less? Do you know that kind of way? Now I'm you know yourself. I'm playing with this. I'm trying to stretch it out.
Get a bully into martial arts, maybe, and that'll be their outlet. Like, rather than, and who knows? I think most people who bully are either being bullied themselves at home or by other people, or there's something, you know, not quite right in their environment.
It's not a good indicator if a kid is bullying.
Yeah. So yeah, there's definitely, for the person being bullied and for the bully, there's life lessons there for everyone involved. So I think it's all good, really. It's all learning. But yeah, on that, a place like an outlet for actual bullying with comedy, like roasting, you know, the American kind of style comedy.
Roasting is an element of it. Yeah,
like accepted. What do you call it? Kind of a space for bullying where everyone knows we're just having a laugh, really. Slagging. So the Irish version, we're just kind of boys sitting around, or girls, fucking just, maybe women don't do it as much, but, you know, in school and that, you just kind of sit around and take the shit out of each other. But
yeah, very much
all
so.
in good jest, like. But that's maybe not quite bullying. I don't know. Some people probably feel it as bullying, like if they're not.
There's a very, very thin line between, you know, lads having the crack and lads ruining people's lives.
Yeah.
Do you know that kind of way?
Yeah.
But again, how much of the emphasis there should be on stopping the lads from having the crack, as opposed to
strengthening
the guy or girl who's, you know, the victim of it? Because ultimately, from what I can see, you're not going to end bullying. Do you know that kind of way? So, like, look, we've tried. You know, every school in the world has an anti-bullying policy, and you know all the rest of it. It's in the literature. It's well documented. Everybody understands it. We know what it is, and we can't stop it. So, are you better off embracing it to a degree? Because what works for me, at least with the fighting analogy, is the more trained you are in how to fight, the less likely you are to get in a fight.
Yes, yeah.
And I wonder, is there something analogous there with the better trained you are in bullying somebody, the less likely you are to actually bully somebody.
I struggle to think of a way of like actually embracing that, but I think that I'd agree with the sentiment for sure. Like, I think if you try to squash things down, or even worse, make laws against it, I know that's your favourite thing in the world.
Ban bullying! Make bullying an illegal offence.
Well, we got hate speech laws now, which is kind of a step in that direction, and I don't see that as a positive step. Now, who knows? Look, there's lots of arguments for, you know, censoring certain speech, but I think, like, again, it's being human means you have choice. Like, you can choose whatever you want to do. You can go out and kill somebody if you want. Like, I wouldn't recommend it, but you can do it. Like, life manifests that way. You can be a Stalin, you can be whoever you want, but I think you can't, if you don't have a choice, there's no point. Like, and I think the more you try to squash it down with laws and regulations, it'll just rear its ugly head in some other way, shape or form. It's like the drug laws. You make all the drugs illegal, you squash it under the carpet, then you've got way more addiction problems, you've got way more abuse and addiction,
more drugs to get addicted to.
Exactly.
There wouldn't be 100th of the drugs that are out there now if the handful of ones that we had at the start were legal.
For sure, because the chemists just play. It's not an arms race, bad term to use, but it's the chemists are 5 steps ahead or 10 steps ahead. The renegade chemists, you make that synthetic drug illegal, I've got 20 more that you haven't made illegal, and just make more and more. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. You know, the more drugs, the better. So in a way, that's after disproving my whole point. But generally, I'm in the addiction sense, I suppose it's kind of more the lines I was going on. If you make drugs illegal, you'll have way more addiction. I believe in England, when they had alcohol banned, I think it was in the 1800s, gin was a huge problem. I think it could have been just gin was made illegal, and like, you see some of the artwork, the paintings from back then, there's mothers like throwing their babies out of windows, and I'm guessing this is fairly true to life. Like, the artists weren't just making it up, but like, the massive problem. Same in America when they make alcohol illegal. Alcohol just went through the roof, alcoholism, and then the cartels, all the mafiosos are making money off it. So not only are you ruining people's lives with addiction because they can't get whatever normal access to it, you're also making the worst people, worse is a judgment, but you know, the kind of, you're giving the cartels all the money and all the power. Why not tax it, regulate it, make sure, you know, it's a lot harder. As a 15-year-old in Ireland, I could buy a bag of weed, no problem. It was very hard to buy some alcohol, very hard.
Of course, because there was consequences to serving people underage, and the alcohol. Like, it's funny because even the alcohol. Like, when, let's say you turned 18, you could go into the shop and you didn't just go and ask the guy for a bottle of alcohol, which is exactly what you do when you go to a lad buying weed. You're like, I want weed, I'll have the cannabis, please. How much of it would you like? €100 worth, please. There you are. Thanks, pal.
Unless you have a really good dealer.
Few and far between unreliable wankers. But again, like, even like normal people, they're forced to go to these places, and they're forced to pay for the gun crime and the kidnapping and the human trafficking and all the rest of it. And we can't keep drugs out of our maximum security prisons. So how the fuck are we supposed to keep them out of broader society?
Yeah, it's nonsense.
And this isn't like breaking news. This isn't what's happened in the last 5 years.
It's
and we're just trying to
forever.
catching up with it. Like, I mean, there was another one. What was it? Just in relation to drugs, I thought was fucking brilliant. I'd never heard it before. It was actually, you know the guy. I don't know if you know what I'm going to say, but you know your man Hamilton Morris.
Oh, I love him. Yeah.
He had a great line with Rogan recently, and he said that he compared drugs as a thing to music, as a thing to, because that's how we got here. We were on music and we
being
came
a
to
drug.
drugs.
Yeah,
music being a fucking drug.
Yeah.
And the point that he made, correct me if I'm wrong, was that if music had been banned the way cannabis and psychedelics had been banned in the 60s, say, we'd be all talking about the health benefits of listening to music.
Yeah, it can cure depression, can
elevate your heart rate, can be great for anxiety, you know, so long as it's prescribed to you by a doctor.
It needs to be justified, like, it's just
Madness,
nonsense. Like, humans have always altered their state. Like, you see it in early cave paintings, guys making pictures of mushrooms and just any drugs they could find growing around the place. I believe Ireland used to be a massive grower of tobacco and hemp.
I knew hemp, but didn't know tobacco.
Tobacco as well, yeah. Apparently, you know, Virginian tobacco.
Yes.
That is named after County Cavan, Virginia and Cavan.
Fuck
not
off.
Not Virginia in the States, but the Brits, the damn Brits. Love
Well,
them
yada.
really. They basically they put massive duties on it, so it became impossible for people to grow it. And then, so typical, within like 80 years, the tradition was kind of lost, and people started thinking, oh, tobacco doesn't grow in Ireland. But Ireland used to be one of the biggest growers of tobacco going, like hemp and tobacco. Imagine that, like just walking out in the fields, there's your hemp, there's your tobacco.
Isn't it mad though? Because like I've thought about growing tobacco here in Ireland before. It's probably illegal, is it? Or is it? Do you know?
I think you need license.
Okay.
Which again, it's I think it was De Valera's government that the laws changed again, but it basically became so expensive to do with all the loopholes that it just became unfeasible for anybody to grow it for profit. Like,
Okay.
and I think even just to grow for personal supply or that, you'd need a license and you have to pay tax and this and that. I can't imagine like trying to get a license to grow hemp. There's just so much red tape that most people don't bother. Yeah, so I don't know all the ins and outs, but
it's funny though, because the reason that I mentioned it was because my profession is, as you well know, is growing in a completely controlled environment with artificial light and heat and aeration and all the rest of it. And I've thought before about the idea of growing tobacco, especially when I used to smoke, but growing my own tobacco, like people grow their own cannabis.
yeah.
But I would have had it in my head that I would have had to set up the lights and control the environment and all the rest of it.
Grow
I never
outside.
thought that I could just plant it in the fucking garden.
Grow it outside. Actually, grow hemp it might be very good.
You see, it's mad though, because I knew that, and it'd be perfectly good. We have a fucking temperate rainforest.
Yeah.
We would be a temperate rainforest had the Brits again not chopped down all the fucking forests.
Yeah, kill all the wolves.
Who was it? Past guest and friend of the show, Anthony Murphy, gave me a great one. He said that a squirrel could walk from Malin Head to Mizzen Point without touching the ground.
Oh, I love that.
At one point. So fucking cool. But it's mad though, because you can't. It's very hard not to grow something.
Yeah.
Find me 6 inches of soil in Ireland that doesn't have something growing out of it, that hasn't been sprayed with something.
Rainfall and everything. We just a perfect climate. But it's news to me. It's actually a guy at a meet up in Tara. He makes Bridget's crosses. You might have seen him before. Kiri's his name. Lovely guy. It's actually him that mentioned it, that Ireland used to be huge growers of tobacco. He had old photographs of old like tobacco sheds, to call them, places where they're like 30, 40 high sheds.
Dry the leaves and that.
Exactly it, yeah. I was amazed. And then you never know when you're talking to kind of random hippies around the place when they're talking nonsense or that, but fact check them anyway. And all 100%. Like, I was blown away. There's tobacco growing all over the country.
Man, the weirdos have the best stories and the best,
sure.
like the best insights and the best of everything. Another great quote I heard recently, I don't know who to attribute it to.
Careful now, don't attribute it to anyone. You'll be fucking censored.
What the fuck was it now? Unique people have unique opinions.
I like that.
Really like that.
Yeah.
And obviously the main point of that is almost its opposite. You know, regular people have regular opinions.
Yeah.
You know, you need to be a little bit off the lead, to use my own terminology, to have an original fucking thought, if such a thing is even possible.
Yeah. I think, is it even an opinion if it's like not something you formed yourself, or at least tried to form yourself or phrase it in your own way? I mean, if it's just something you heard and you're kind of regurgitating, it's, I don't know, it's just mimicry.
You notice that though, do you? When you're mimicking, I've caught myself halfway through a sentence and I've kind of said to myself, you know, that second kind of voice, like there's the speaking voice and then there's the other voice, and I'd be in the middle of saying something and I'd catch myself saying like, you're just parroting here, Frano, like, do you know that kind of way? And it's great chatting to people like you, because you'd put me up on shit.
Likewise, so I find myself doing it as well. I love it's one of Peterson's rules, like, don't say anything you know to be false. I mean, it's a bit of a parallel, it's not exactly what we're talking about, but I think I notice it in singing as well. If someone's mimicking, I do it as well, where I'm not kind of sure of maybe the key or how the song kind of goes up and down the scales. I end up kind of mimicking the accent of the person, and it just doesn't. You're not singing in your own voice, then it comes across as kind of fake or something.
And I do that. The first musical thing I uploaded was I covered "My Dad's Gone Crazy" by Eminem a couple of years ago, and again that was just an effort to just get out of my own way and do something. I suppose pushing a bit of a personal boundary, like. Nothing to somebody who sings, but I'm not a fucking singer, so you know, give me a break. But I did that very intentionally in my own accent. I didn't do it with Mother Lover because I was trying to sing that, and it's different when you're singing to when you're rapping.
It's fast as well, Mother Lover, isn't it? It's kind of
you kind of rap / sing,
yeah.
scream. But I've every intention of covering. My next one is going to be "Point of No Return" by Immortal Technique.
Oh wow!
In my accent, the Irish accent, and the whole thing works.
Awesome.
Like a lot of songs don't work. Like there's another thing that I'll probably cover at some stage, as a song by Zach Hempsey called "Don't Get In My Way," and there's a couple of lines that don't really work with the Irish accent because I can't think of it off the top of my head, but I think he rhymes bomb and palm, so the palm of his hand and a bomb, palm, but bomb and palm, it just doesn't really work. But "Point of No Return" has something like 8 million words in it because it's a rap and it's fucking bang 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 bang, but it works seamlessly with an Irish accent. And do you know the tune?
No, it's Immortal Technique, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one of his more famous ones. You'd know it, like, but it's basically about him just kind of speaking some truths about the way the world is, essentially, and that's what I like to do. That other tune by Zach Hempsey is the same, and I'd love to cover kind of deep, meaningful expose raps that I love anyway, and for the same reason that I do this, like I'm not really covering any new ground in any of the solos that I do or in the conversations that I've had, but you're giving the subject material, you're delivering it in an Irish accent, and there's a certain amount of people in Ireland, say, and maybe around the world, well obviously around the world because my audience is 3/4 of it is outside of Ireland, but there's something about the fact that I'm a skinhead man with an Irish accent that will be appealing to somebody in a way that long-haired brown girl won't.
Yes.
Do you know that kind of way?
It's so strange on that covering rap songs. It's literally like a day before you posted the Mother Lover tune. I was on YouTube down one of my music rabbit holes. I think I was listening to Rick Beat or one of these guys that talk about kind of music. More generally, just kind of talking about theory or why he thinks the song is good. But he had a video up about why people don't cover rap songs. And then the very next day, there's you to cover rap songs. Like, no way. Trust Rano to do something nobody else is doing. Class, so absolutely, it's a weird little kind of synchronicity.
And
or something.
Can you remember why? Like, what was the reasoning? What was the reasoning behind it, or the rationale?
So I remember a couple of the points was kind of. There were more. He's making points more why people cover, say, rock tunes or pop tunes. Is that it's a whole band. So if you're learning an instrument, it's something you can kind of. It's a way of learning an instrument. Number one, you learn songs. It's kind of a way to progress. You kind of might start off with kind of simpler tunes, maybe a 4-chord song or something, and then you work your way up. You start trying to learn solos and melodies and trying to play maybe rhythm and melodies all at once. But with rap, I think the point he's making is just kind of, it's just one person and their voice. So it's kind of maybe, it's just something people don't tend to do. I forget now exactly. I must watch it again. But
because I have noticed that nobody seems to do it.
No one covers rap songs.
I don't really get that.
Because you'll have in rock music or in any other genre of music, sometimes a cover is more popular than the original artist.
Yes.
Your brother Pat is a great one for that. He'll know off the top of his head like a load of songs you'll attribute to one person, and they're not the original of it at all. It's some guy 50 years previously or something.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
But
Just put me wide to a few of those, actually.
Yeah, it's so weird because that's their tune, and then when you hear the original, it's kind of like, no, this isn't how it should sound at all.
Yeah, that works both ways, obviously, as well, because the original can sometimes be way better than the cover. Like.
Yeah, and it's kind of maybe underrated or something. But it's so weird listening to that video. It's annoying now, I can't remember the points he was making about it. Because he had some good ones. It's just weird. The very next day you had uploaded that. I was thinking that's typical.
Bit of synchronicity.
Yeah.
Speaking of synchronicity, and before we move on too far, I'm going to pull you back to singing during a psychedelic experience.
Oh, yeah.
I'd never heard that. And I've gone deep down the psychedelic literature, and I know you referenced, was it Terence McKenna? I obviously know Terence is, or was.
Is
sorry
there.
Sorry
He's
Terence.
sorry, he's everywhere.
But I'd never heard him or anybody else say that, and I'm trying to the breathing. I'm all over. Not everyone says that, but the breathing, you breathe through stuff.
In regular life.
In regular life, absolutely. And it's a real kind of mindful thing. If you're about to fly off the handle, if you can just breathe in through your nose and push out your belly, breathe with your diaphragm, just go. Yeah. It does kind of center you, for want of a better term.
Many times did your mommy tell you 5 deep breaths?
Yeah. But again, that's a perfect example of what I was referencing earlier. So your mom tells you to take 5 deep breaths, and you go, "Oh, fuck off, ma!" But
Terence McKenna says,
but exactly, isn't it the exact same fucking thing? Do you ever get driving lessons off your mom? Don't, right? Fucking don't, because she's not going to say or do anything different than a driving instructor will.
Yeah.
But it's your fucking mother, and piss off, ma.
We all shoot the messenger, isn't it? Shoot them down.
But we don't, though. We shoot certain types of messengers. Do you know that kind of way?
Yeah.
Like there's a, I don't know what it is. There's a weirdness to it. Like,
you brought me into this world. You've done your job now. Enough. Don't have to listen to you anymore.
But isn't it mad though? And isn't it mad how so much, like, we've covered so much, and how it's all inextricably intertwined and interlinked. But that's so rare. And a complaint, for want of a better term, that I've gotten is that I should pick a topic and I should cover it. And
Stick to it.
And
what happened, COVID?
Didn't fucking last long, did it? But like,
Thank fuck.
Thank fuck again, though. Thank fuck again,
no,
because I don't mind.
That's much more fun.
But there's something to, and again, this is an off the lead conversation. I mean, picking topics and discussing topics is contrived, and we've had fucking 100 years of it, and we're sick of it, because it's not representative of normal life.
Chaos of
like,
life.
When was the last time you met up with someone? Well, okay, bad fucking turn of phrase. Like, when was the last time you met up with someone and said something? I know, a year. Yeah, exactly.
All the time, I've been following these restrictions. Is this some form of protest here? Is it?
It's a large gathering of people. The mics are 2 meters apart, folks, right? What the fuck was I going to say? I've fucking confused myself. I interrupted myself. I'm always at that. But no, that's what I was going to say. Like, when in normal life do you ever meet up with somebody and go, okay, so we're going to talk about football?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
you know, no, you're starting to talk about a player. Football, it's all about the game.
I think that's people's fear coming onto the podcast. Well, because I was chatting to Ivor the other day, and he was talking about coming on again himself, and just talking about kind of saying it to a few of his mates he'd think he'd have a good conversation with, and to be hesitant to do it, like, or just won't do it. And Ivor be there saying to them, sure, you just been talking to me all day, like, to be working together or whatever. We've been chatting all day, and they'd be like, oh, sure, what would I talk about on a podcast? And Ivor's like, same as what we've been doing all day, but I think just what you're on there is people are saying, because it's filmed and it's recorded, oh, I better have something clever to say, or it's ego getting in the way, like, I better come across smart, or better not look stupid, or whatever. Just an unwillingness to kind of expose yourself again. This is like singing, only weirder again. Maybe not weirder, but yeah, at least with a song you kind of know what you're going to say next to some degree.
I don't think this is as weird with the song though, because if I had said to you, bring the guitar,
oh yeah, no, yeah.
You didn't even have to think about it. Before
everyone might see it. Oh God!
Before you fucking said anything, you went. You literally squirmed in your seat. Like.
It's terrible, isn't it?
But it's mad.
Just afraid of yourself, like, it's bizarre.
But that's coming from somebody who's willing to sit down in front of a camera and talk about
anything,
abortion, death, prostitution, like, you name it. You've no issue in talking about anything.
Oh yeah. But, I know that I could be wrong completely.
And on top of that, you're an accomplished guitarist. By my fucking standards, you are. Like, I mean, you can play the guitar. You're like, have you done the 10,000 hours? Do you think?
Getting there. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So you're fucking, whether you might say it or feel it, you're 100% expert, relatively speaking, expert level in playing the guitar. But I say, do the thing you're an expert at, and
be uncomfortable. It's letting go of yourself. That's all ego again, or maybe not ego. It's just an unwillingness to let go and bear it all, and be willing to make a fool of yourself if it doesn't sound great, or whatever. It's fun with guitar anywhere, or any instrument. That's why I love it. Really, it's again representational of life. The more you put into it, the more there is to know. That's why I'd never claim to be an expert, and I'm not. I'm maybe a intermediate, lower end of intermediate, if you wanted to put a level on it. But you talk to any master on the guitar and they'll say it themselves, like, it's an endless road. It's like life. The more you go in, the deeper it gets. Like, there is no end point where you're going to be satisfied. There's just constant learning to be doing. You could have mastered one genre, but you haven't gone near classical music or Spanish guitar or whatever, flamenco. There's endless amounts. Gypsy guitar, there's just endless amounts of genres, and then within each genre, it's just an infinite expanse as well. Most guitar players will stick to one. Like, you're a jazz player, you just play jazz. You're whatever, blues player, you just play blues. Some people will cross over and do kind of fusion and stuff, but it's endless, absolutely endless.
And it's mad though, because even if you pick blues and you are the world's greatest blues guitarist, bar none, if you haven't broken new ground, you haven't done it all. Do you know that kind of way?
Exactly.
But it's funny because I've heard the exact same thing from black belts in jiu-jitsu in particular. And one thing that they'll often say, and it just crushes me as a white, or I suppose I'd be a blue belt level thereabouts, but to hear a black belt say something like, my training only really started the day I got my black belt, it's like, fuck you and your black belt.
Yeah, it's inspiring and intimidating.
It
all
is
at
though,
once,
isn't it? But it's exactly what you were talking about.
Yeah.
Like, you become accomplished only to realise that you've
don't
only
know
started.
anything at all. Yeah.
And depending on how you view that, because your perception is everything, you can say, what's the point in even starting, if that's what black belts say. Or you can go, no way, I can be that good, and you're only getting started.
Exactly. Well, that's life, isn't it? It's that kind of paradoxical nature of, if you want to contain something, you have to let it expand, like, infinitely, which just seems counterintuitive or
You've
something.
lost me. If you want to contain something, you have to let it expand. Is that what you said?
Yeah. So if you want to, it's I think I've taken that from the Tao Te Ching, Chinese philosophy book from way back.
That's Taoism, is it?
Yeah. They say, what's it, Lao Tzu said, if you want to contain something, you have to let it expand. And for me, that's exactly what we're talking about here. If you want to master something, you can't let the ego get in the way and tell you, oh, I know what I'm doing now. Do you know, I've got 4 chords on the guitar. I know how to play the guitar. It's like, no, you're only entry level, or I got my black belt in jiu-jitsu. That doesn't mean you're finished at all. Like, you need the beginner's mind. You need to always view yourself as a beginner, and that's the best way to improve. Like, if you want to be able to master something, you have to act like a child. Like, you have to treat yourself like a child.
And play. Young was big into that, wasn't
he? Yeah, draw mandalas, all that kind of stuff. Right here.
That's exactly what. That's what I've been thinking a lot about, what I'm doing and how I do it and why I do it and all the rest of it. And I keep coming back to it. I'm playing. I have a toy set. I have 3 toy sets between the kind of the demo one behind the camera, this one that the camera is focusing on now. I'm going to double check that camera to make sure it's recording.
Yeah. Cool. Let's keep it going. That's an honor to be here, Frano.
Thank you. It's not as though, you know, I'm inundated like with people ringing me looking to come on, if I'm being honest. I mean, it's a funny one because I want to get more people on all the time, but the pushback of coming on, I've been really surprised by it, to be honest with you. Really surprised. At the start, it was a lot more understandable because it was like, oh, you're starting a podcast, are you? And okay, right. No, thanks. But now it's kind of, it has a life of its own to a certain degree. There's been 35 odd conversations, so you're not, you know, at the start. You could see why it would be hard getting your first guest on.
Yes,
because it's totally new and they don't know anything. But I mean, if somebody comes on now, you're only the 36th or the 37th or the 38th guest that comes on. You're not. You know what Off the Lead is and what the conversations are isn't going to be based on your conversation because you're only one of 40.
Yeah,
do you know that kind of way? So I could see at the start why somebody wouldn't come on, but I've just been shocked, I suppose, at the lack of, I don't even know what it's a lack of. I suppose it's people's unwillingness to get out of their own way. Yeah, that's essentially what it boils down to.
Self-doubt stuff.
Yeah,
like,
and it's pure ego, just pure ego.
Yeah, just crushing you. Look, and I think on the point of, you know, if you're the first person on, it's probably more difficult. But like, if I just listened to you and Anthony Murphy, you know, before coming on here, I'd be thinking, oh God, I don't know anything. Like, not the way he's such a polymath. Like, he could go drill down on something, whereas I'm probably more like yourself, just kind of off the lead, dog bounding around the field. We'll sniff at one flower and then jump off over to another direction. But yeah, I suppose it's maybe a bit more daunting if you're listening to, you know, people who have very specific focused things that they've been working on for 20 or 30 years. It's kind of, oh God, I'm not an expert on absolutely anything. I don't know anything really. Like, but sure, it's all fun. Just have a game. Be a bit more playful about it and see what happens. Like, I don't know what I'm going to say next.
No, look, I don't know what I'm going to ask next or say next, and that's, to me, is the kind of beauty of it, and it's what we're talking about is what Off the Lead is. Do you know that kind of way? Like the thought of calling it Off the Lead originally was the idea of a dog. Like, when is a dog kind of happiest? It's when he's off the lead.
Yeah, in the field.
And I think we're like that. Society is the dog handler. Yeah. And we all have our little invisible leash. And, you know, don't walk down there because you know, that's not the footpath. You know,
there's a sign saying keep your dog on the lead, so you better keep your dog on the lead.
Yeah, but even with people in their own lives, like we park in the same spaces and we take the same route to and from work all the time, and we're very kind of closed-minded and regimented, and we stay in our lane, as the expression goes. And the whole Off the Lead, the whole point of starting it was a pushback. Against that. Like,
freedom, liberty.
Be yourself to fuck.
Like. Yeah, that's it. Be yourself. Like, there can't be anything more powerful than that. Like, just be yourself. Like, We are the ultimate of what's going on around us. That's why I think this is so powerful. Like we're at the point. We are the point. Like we are at the tipping point. We're consciousness. Like it doesn't get more amazing than this. It really doesn't. Even if we're just to sit here in silence and record it, like class. Absolutely.
Don't know how many listeners we get in podcast land for that one.
Oh, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. Ali was having a laugh there yesterday. There's like, do you know, ever hear of like binaural beats and stuff that's that's like little frequencies to be tuned to whatever hertz, and it's kind of new agey spiritual stuff that might have some kind of chanting, kind of Indian sounding music where you might put it on the background if you're meditating, and certain frequencies are meant to do certain things to your brain. I've done it a few times. Yeah, it's certainly fucking, it's worth a shot. Like, it's interesting. I wouldn't claim now it's gonna whatever enlighten you or anything, but there's on the silence thing, there's ones where people are going onto YouTube, but like it's a silent video. We might have whatever playing in the background. I said you can't just upload audio, especially audio where there is no audio, but it's just silence, and it's meant to be silence tuned to 20 hertz. And people, like, you check down the comment section, oh my god, this is so blissful. And Ali's there laughing, going, people are going on to YouTube for silence. Brilliant. Just more power to them.
Fucking right. Yeah. And it's funny because I kind of caught myself there, because you said, you know, we could sit here and just record it in silence, and I went, oh Jesus, who'd listen to that? But that's what I really have to not get away from. It's what I have to stay away from. This notion of what do people want to hear?
Yeah.
Because that's pure poison. Absolute pure poison.
Yeah, that's ego then. If you're trying to feed people what they want to hear or what you think they want to hear, it's an ego endeavor, I think. I love what you said before as well. I think people were kind of a bit nervous about you starting a podcast. Oh, what? Like, you have to be careful about what you're saying and this and that. And you're there thinking, sure, the only people that are going to listen to it are my audience. Like, your audience will find you to some extent, or you'll find your audience, and if they don't like it, they won't tune in. So, like, why care about the naysayers, or why care about people that are just going to whatever? If you don't enjoy it, don't tune in. Like, it's as simple as, if you do enjoy it, do tune in. So
no, it's for me, it's all about exactly what you said there. It's kind of build it and they will come.
Yes.
And if they don't come, so be it. Like, do you know, kind
just
of
keep building. They'll come for something else, maybe.
Yeah, and look, but even like there's something about that, like build it and they will come. It kind of works as much as it doesn't, I think, because it implies that you're only doing it right when they come.
Yeah, no.
Do you know that kind of way? For me, it's do it. Don't be foolish about it. Do you know that kind of way? So, like, I didn't need to put up these curtains. Like, if I was really being true to the authenticity of it, it'd just be the camera and the two mics, and that'd be it. But human beings don't. We are a certain way. We're all very different, but we're all mostly the same. And we don't like clutter, and we don't like. You don't want a big bright light here, and you don't want the table full of stuff. So, I suppose what I'm trying to say is, be authentic and be genuine and do things the way you want to do, full stop. But don't be fucking stupid about it.
Yeah, for
because
sure.
I want to make a go of this. I want to make this my primary source of income.
Yes.
I want to do this professionally for the rest of my life.
Put your heart and soul into it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And respect for yourself, respect for your audience. Like, it's...
Oh, without a doubt. But what I don't want to end up as, I suppose, is... Or I suppose in the back of my mind there's a fear that I don't want to become the guy who... did nothing but what he wanted to do his entire life, but never really took it anywhere because he didn't really do the basic things. Or do you know that kind of way? Like there has to be some level of conservatism in it. It can't be all like, I want to encourage people to be off the lead, but I don't want to encourage people to live under a bridge.
Yes.
Do you know, you need to go to work, and you should get up at regular times and go to bed, and you know, you need your sleep.
So you need routine to some, but just don't be regimented. Like, you need. I like the idea of you end up on a spiral one way or the other, and it's kind of, routine is part of it. But either you can be spiraling downward and just going more and more negative, or you can be spiraling upward. And I think routine becomes part of that. Like, I think we were talking about it on the last one, the kind of Jocko Willink stuff. Like, if you want to be free, discipline yourself. And,
Yes.
the human body, like, I mean, I think it's Peterson that said it, the skin is a boundary. Like, you need boundaries, you need borders. So this is a border. It's containing the chaos of me and you, or the chaos with our consciousness. Like, it can't be just completely, it needs to be focused in. You have a camera, you have the audio. Like, there has to be some boundaries so we can actually communicate. Or you can go boundaryless. We could swallow some psychedelics or something, let it all melt away for a few hours. But certainly for this kind of thing, boundaries are important. You need them. You definitely need them. On the playfulness thing, something I've been doing more recently, taking a leaf out of your book. I think it's maybe not the last conversation, one before it, we were talking about movement and Ido Portal and that. And
Yes.
just started I'm enjoying my running now. For the months there, it was just run whatever it is, 5-10 kilometers, kind of a straight loop. Straight loop makes no sense, but a loop, just a regular, the kind of same loop. I might have slight variations, like I'll go down that road instead of that road, but I started doing just running backwards for whatever, a few hundred meters, or running side to side, or tumbling around in the fields, or and then the dog starts tumbling as well. That's great crack, but just getting that spirit of play back into it, because it just seemed like a routine chore. But now I still have the routine of running every day or every other day, but just adding that bit of variance, that you're not just pounding one foot after the other. It's kind of mixing up, running with high knees for whatever, a few minutes, or running backwards. You get some funny looks. You thought running barefoot was weird.
Try running backwards in bare feet.
Hey, safety car. And because you're running backwards, you can watch the reaction for a good 2 minutes. It's so funny.
That is quality.
The kids kind of just
So
point.
you'd overtake someone.
Oh yeah.
So you're both heading in the same direction, but you're facing them.
Yeah.
And you're running.
And they're just looking at you.
Oh man, that is fucking brilliant. That is fucking priceless.
So funny.
But you see, what I love about that is, by doing that, you're so much more inclined to, like, when the time comes when we can walk into a fucking room full of people, you're far more likely, I think, to walk into that room in 6 months' time and not kind of shy away, because you're kind of comfortable. Do you know that kind of way? I think a lot of people, they walk into rooms, especially if you suffer with any kind of social anxiety, you go into a room and you kind of
close up.
You close up and you look down and you fucking, you hide behind fucking whatever it is, and you go into the corner and you might talk to somebody in the corner. But it's all very close and you're kind of a little bit afraid or whatever. But if you've gotten used to running backwards past people and them just kind of not knowing where to look because this weirdo is in front of them, like I would imagine you'd be a hell of a lot more likely to walk into that room and kind of let it all hang out.
Yeah, I'll just be yourself.
Just be yourself. Yeah.
It's the key to everything, I think. If you want to do anything, if you want to succeed, like, just be yourself. Like, if you're trying to be someone else, people see it and they can feel it, and it's inauthentic, and we're all unique individuals, just like everyone else.
Yes.
So yeah, be yourself, and like that's what it's all about. And I think everybody else is waiting on everybody else, kind of thing.
Very much so. Yeah.
You just have to open up, and then I'll open up, and then people are kind of, when you're waiting for the other person to make a move, and then they're waiting for you to make a move, and then it's a little awkward, and it's like, just get over that shit, like, and fucking just be yourself.
Be yourself. But the thing about being yourself, I think, is, I don't think you can be yourself until you've found yourself. And you won't find yourself unless you've tried a couple of different selves.
Yeah,
do you know that kind of way? So I think you need to, so that running backwards, let's say, worked for you, but it mightn't work for somebody else. And that's fine. But if you're not putting yourself out there, and so let's say I go, okay, I'll take a leaf out of Porrick's book and I'll run backwards for a while. Let's say I run backwards and I just go, oh God, no, Jesus, it's just not me, right? I'll upload another song, I'll dance naked in front of the camera, I'll do whatever you want me to do, but running backwards isn't for me. you don't know that about yourself until you do
tried
it.
it, yeah.
And how can you know who and what you are until you've made a load of mistakes?
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're just basing everything on assumptions.
And I probably wouldn't have done it. I seen a guy on YouTube, what's his name, the Pioneer. I was looking up, I have a bit of a sore knee, my right knee isn't great, but I was looking up YouTube videos on how to improve just the muscles around the knee and the glutes and that. And yeah, one of his recommendations was running backwards, because you put your knees over your toes, so it's giving you just a different kind of stretch. Basically, you're working out different muscle groups. And yeah, if I hadn't seen him doing it, probably just would have never thought of it, because it's not something you see people doing. And he's fairly big built guy, so it's probably, you know, maybe a bit easier to be eccentric, because you're ripped. Like, it's he's confident in himself, but he's there going, yeah, you bunny hop to the shops, and he's there going down the road, bunny hop. It's like, right, I'm not at that level yet. Like, I'll try this running backwards, crack, and see how I go. But yeah, like that, you need to try and, you know, discover. If you don't like it, you don't like it. Try something else. But it's fear and doubt and hope. Even it's like the other side of doubt. It's all nonsense. Like, just have faith in the way things are. Like, we're here for a reason. This thing is unimaginably amazing. Like, it's we kind of, the ego ends up having to filter things down and make things kind of concrete so you can get from point A to point B, and that's important. And your work and your routine, everything else it's all important stuff. But I think you need, in that routine and that rigidity, you need some outlet, like, as well. You need something creative, martial arts, exercise of some description, art, whatever, poetry, writing, anything. Just get whatever's in your head and get it out. If there's stuff to be said, or, you know, or just sit in silence, just meditate, whatever you're into.
Yeah, and it doesn't need to be an off the lead podcast or running backwards. Like a mate of mine has gotten into stop motion of late. Well, he's been dabbling in it for a long time, but I think he's a bit of time off now, so he's at home and he's making, you know, he's spending days on end making 10-second videos. Like, just the nature that it's a laborious task. But I must actually get, with his permission, upload one of the videos. He uploaded, he made an Iron Man figurine. Now, nothing special about it. My 6-year-old could make it. It's paint by numbers, like, you know. It's page by page guidance. You click this into this and this into this. You'd make it yourself in 10 minutes.
Playmobil character kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a little Iron Man figurine thing. Cool. It's like 100 pieces, whatever. But he made like a 20-second video, stop motion, of it being built without his hands. So it's just the first one is the floor gets put down, and then the foot gets pushed into the little circles, and then the other foot, and then the ankle gets clicked in, and then like the other piece, and it just builds and builds and builds and builds and builds. And that's his little creative outlet. Like, I don't know if he shared it on social media. I don't know if he's told anybody about it. I don't know if he's doing it intentionally to kind of get out of his own way. I don't think any of that's the case. I think he's just kind of doing it because he likes doing it. But I don't think that's encouraged enough. Like,
the spirit of play, that's everything. That's what we're here to do, I think, to a large extent. If you can bring the spirit of play into everything you're doing, I think you're just going to enjoy things that much more, and you're going to get better at them then as well, because you're enjoying it. Like, I don't think there's any such thing as like a pointless task. Even if you're whatever, doing the most mundane thing ever, it could be, you know, it could be really enjoyable, or you can make it hell. So, you know, it's bring that spirit of play to just everything you do, I suppose.
Bringing it back again to kind of the more traditional media outlets, they tend to get people on who are experts in this certain thing, and I think that's kind of fed into normal life these days. So what I mean is, people don't want to come on unless they're an expert in something and they'll talk about their expertise. But that's not playful. This is playful, because you don't, like, being playful and not knowing what you're doing are kind of synonyms to a degree, aren't they?
Definitely.
Like, if I had, like, I'm in here in my set now, okay, with the 2 lights that were taken out of an office that we're doing a refurb. All the lights were going into the skip. These are old curtains that were white. I threw them in the wash with some black dye. This is a sign you and the lads actually got made for me. An old table, bits and pieces. If I had a degree in set design, I wouldn't be happy with this. I'd never have this in the first place, and there'd be nothing playful because you'd need the backlight and the side light and the rim light and the this light, and you'd need this, and this. And
you need 20 grand to start. There's no point in even starting.
You're at work. Do you know, like, there's nothing playful about that. But me, it's like, fuck, okay, I've got these weird shaped lights. They're no good on the ground. I'll put them on the old chairs that I have. Oh fuck, I need to hang this from something, so I'll get a bit of coaxial cable and I'll sellotape it to the like literally like
Cobbled together, love it. Duct tape and some cord. Oh, okay, lovely. Yeah. No, it's perfect. Yeah, it's
That was risky.
It's a good job.
But like, it's playful.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, and you didn't have to spend. If you're creative, like you don't need to break the bank if you want to do something. Like I think you can be crass with money so easily, like, or you can be really tasteful with nothing at all.
Yes,
like,
very much so.
You can go into a charity shop and you buy a few things and for next to nothing, and you could redecorate your whole house with fucking pennies. Like you really can.
There's something money. There's something about money and creativity. They don't go well together.
Yeah.
Do you know that kind of way? Because let's say I had 200 grand in the bank just spending money, or I was earning so much money that I couldn't spend it all. I wouldn't have the 2 old chairs in the kitchen and the bed sheet thrown across the light that was going into the skip. I'd have gone on to fucking Amazon and I would have bought whatever camera recording lighting equipment that I would have needed, and it would have robbed me of the opportunity to mess around with it and to play and to be creative. Like.
And I reckon if you pumped a bunch of mony into it, it would kind of become about money now. You'd be like, I need to get a return on my investment.
You'd have to pay for it. 100%. If this had cost me money, you'd be only out the door and somebody else would be in, and then somebody else would be in, and it'd be. I'd be at work then, I wouldn't be playing. Do you know that kind of way? I certainly wouldn't be turning the fucking logo around and showing you how it was put together with bits of sellotape. Like.
I see you and look at the likes of Rogan or that. He says it himself, like he doesn't. This is some work. Like this is, I just meet up with friends and have chats. Like, and it's just amazing how powerful it is and how popular it is. And again, I love, like, technology's taken over and we need to make it work for us.
Yes.
Like, we really do. And I think this is how you do it. Like, this is taking the power back. This is empowering people through conversation, through dialogue, empowering ourselves. It's, technology is just, that's going to shape the future to the largest, I think, beyond any extent we can imagine, be it CRISPR babies, be it whatever, symbiotic relationships with technology. Who knows where it's going to go, but unless we start getting creative with it and kind of learning how to make it work for us, it's either going to be the tools for liberating ourselves or the tools for enslaving us. So I think this is headed in the freedom direction, which is what I love about it. Like, I think more power to you.
I couldn't agree more. Could not agree more. And I have another one for you. So I have Off the Lead has a WhatsApp number now. 089 60 47 888.
Get on.
Genuinely does. And I'm playing with WhatsApp as a medium. And the problem that I had originally when I uploaded My Dad's Gone Crazy, I wrapped it to the original soundtrack, and without realising, as soon as I uploaded it, it just got flagged as being copyright. Obviously, in hindsight, duh. You're not going to be able to upload you rapping an Eminem song without the bots kind of going, that's copyright material.
Yeah.
So it just ended up being the audio that went up, just me rapping it with no music, which, look, I just did it to do it, and it was done. Then I was a little bit wiser with Mother Lover. I knew I couldn't use the backing track, so I just made my own little kind of jokey backy track and did it, and that was grand. But with Immortal Techniques tune, that Point of No Return, the music in it, you could do it without it because it's so wordy. Like there's barely a split second out of the whole thing that he's not actually saying a word. So you could get away with it, but it's real dramatic violin fucking dun, dun, that kind of music.
Yeah.
So without it, it'd be nothing. So what I'm thinking of doing is recording it over the original music, but sharing it via WhatsApp.
Okay, yeah.
So the idea is, if you instead of me uploading it to the internet, if you want it,
it's there on the group.
no. Well, I don't know what way that's going to work. I haven't figured that bit out. But what will work from the start, at least, is I can just say, if you want to hear it, text me, and I'll text it back to you. And that might be just a way of kind of bypassing that
Copyright infringement.
That copyright infringement.
Brilliant.
But again, I'm only playing with the whole WhatsApp number thing. I'm figuring it out. I don't know. I genuinely don't know what I'm doing with it. I don't know how far it's going to go. I don't know if it won't be worth it, and I'll just dispense with it. I don't know. But true to what you were saying, that's kind of playing with these things, with technology like that. It's figuring it out. It's I don't know, being fucking one step ahead of the tech giants to a degree. Like, do you know that kind of way?
Well, it's sussing us out big time.
Well, very true. Yeah.
Not that it has its own whatever consciousness. It's very much people powered, but it's changed the whole way we do everything. It really is. Like, the pandemic just brought that into focus big time. We're going through a technological revolution. Like, I mean, we couldn't have had a lockdown 10 years ago. Like, if we had coronavirus, like we had SARS 10 years ago, or swine flu, we didn't.
Yeah, maybe not 10, but certainly 20.
Oh, I think even 10. You couldn't have Tesco delivering your shopping to you 10 years ago.
Yeah, true. And when you think about like
we didn't have the logistics to DPS all the different delivery companies.
No, you're right
drones,
too. Yeah,
I think even maybe
even internet connection.
Yeah, but no one had like a lot of people didn't have broadband. So
Yes.
when did Des get broadband? People out
A lot
in the
of people
country
still don't fucking have it.
exactly. God love them during all this. So yeah, I think that the pandemic for me anyway really highlights the tech revolution that we're in. Like, people can literally work from home, get all their food delivered, get their takeaways, get absolutely everything between Jeff Bezos and a few others, Elon Musk and co and Zuckerberg. Like, you could literally just stay in your box all day long, every day. And
That's kind of what they want, though, isn't it? Like,
well, it suits them. Yeah, definitely. You're just a consumer, full stop. So I think this is getting the tech, giving people powered through technology rather than people being enslaved through technology.
yeah. Well, look, I'm a lover of technology, as should be apparent by the fact that if you're watching this on the internet, I've gone to the bother of recording it and uploading it and all the rest of it. But I do obviously also see the fucking danger. It's and I've said this numerous times. I'll say it again. It's no different than the hammer.
Yeah.
Like, is a hammer a good or a bad thing?
Yeah.
Well, are you building a house, or
How
you
you
cracking
use
someone
it,
across
yeah.
the face with? It's
Yeah.
all about how you use it. And
time.
these things, the internet connection. I'm blessed. We're out in the country, but we still have fibre. I'm blessed with that. But I wouldn't be. I'd be cursed with it if all I was doing was mindlessly staring at Netflix.
Yeah, or worse,
Or buying shit off Jeff Bezos or whatever it is.
Yeah, just ultimate consumer, fucking porn 24/7. Like, it's very easy to just get sucked into shite online and endlessly scroll through crap.
It's funny what you said there about like getting sucked into porn or something. Like, porn, there's something synonymous with porn and everything else that people spend their time staring at.
That's junk food, like.
And even junk food, but like, I know porn is the quintessential kind of bad thing that you shouldn't be doing. I don't know.
Yeah, I think most people's conscience says that as soon as
Yeah,
they've done it as well. Like, oh Jesus!
And I don't like, most people wouldn't like. I'm often asked, what am I watching on Netflix? It's not. People wouldn't even ask you, do you watch Netflix? People have started asking me, what are you watching on Netflix? And it's like, I don't generally watch it, but anyway. But someone would never ask, what porn are you watching?
Yeah, what site do you use?
But there's a weirdness there, though, because the cooking program, the mind-numbing cooking program that you watch, say, that's just cooking porn. And the Top Gear is car porn.
Yeah, I the news is panic porn.
And the news is panic porn. Is that what you call it at the start? Panic porn.
Yeah.
Pouring on the panic porn.
Yeah.
But that's absolutely, no, 100%.
Yeah.
Car porn, news is panic porn.
Like, Andy Eiley say chewing gum for the eyes, like
Yes.
it's just empty fucking nonsense. Like it's and look, there's a place for it. It exists for a reason. I wouldn't be ban the pornography. It'll be Puritans or will be whatever. It's there for a reason, but like it's I'm sure you'll have super liberal people that will argue the virtues of it and everything else, but I think most people know, the conscience kicks in. It's just there's better things to be doing with your consciousness.
But again, like you said it at the outset, it's a bit like genocide. It's or anything quintessentially evil. And again, Peterson actually makes this point quite well. He says something along the lines of, "Are you not killing people because you're virtuous, or are you not killing people because you're not able to kill people?"
Yeah, this is it. Yeah, I love the example of the student that thinks that they could never do anything wrong and then end up in a riot unexpectedly. They went to a protest, the protest turns into a riot, and then all of a sudden they're stealing iPads from
burning a police car or something.
So you don't, and I think that's the beauty or the power of learning a martial art, which thanks to you I've only kind of got into, like, trying to fucking understand that part of myself, because I would have been one of those naive people thinking, oh God, I could never be a Nazi, oh God, that's the other people, that's the bad people in the world, not recognizing, no, that evil is within me, it's within you, it's within everyone, and it just takes the right/wrong environment to bring it out of people. And if I think Carl Jung said it, if you want to reach heaven, your roots extend all the way to hell, or something to that extent. I think we all have that in us. Who do you think the devil is, as Alan Watts would say? Like, we are the devil, or we are God. Like, it's just what choices are you making? And it's not always black and white like that either, but I think a lot of the times it is.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, as you were saying there, you're like, it's not always a down, like a lot of times it is. But this, and you reminded me about what we talked about at the outset as well, bullying. I don't know, like it's in you to be a bully. It's in me to be a bully. It's in all of us to be a bully.
Yeah, I'm sure we've all done it at some point to some extent. Maybe bullied the person who's most dear to us, or we've done hurtful things, or we've said hurtful things. It's, but how else are you going to learn that you shouldn't do it? Like, if it's something from the day, I've been listening to or reading the Tao Te Ching recently, but it's a load of lines that are just like little bombs that go off in your head. Like, I listen to maybe 2 or 3 lines and I just turn it off and kind of try and digest it. But it's one line is, if you want to become straight, let yourself become crooked. And I think there's something really deep and existential about that as well. And then I think there's ways of experimenting with being crooked without actually corrupting yourself. Like, I don't think that's an argument, go kill somebody and see what happens kind of thing. But some of the most enlightened people were murderers, rapists, that ended up, completely changing their lives and changing lives around them. So yeah, I think there's utility. Like, that's the choice. It's free will, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, there's something to that as well. Like, I mean, have you been following Mike Tyson at all over the last, let's say, year or two?
Since his DMT experience.
Well, pretty much, yes.
He's back in the fight,
I've been fucking paying attention. But what I love about him is, and what he does now is, I think people can take, like, so he's talking about, consciousness and light and love and all these different things that you've heard some lad who's been cross-legged in a cave, say, for the last 20 years. But
it's
the guy,
better when Tyson says it.
But exactly, because
he used to bite people's ears off for a living.
Literally. But there's something to that. And again, I didn't make a great example of it earlier when I was trying to quote Peterson, and it's came to me since. Like, a rabbit isn't virtuous. A rabbit can't do anything. You can't be harmless and be virtuous. The only way you can be virtuous is if you're a fucking animal, if you're capable of murdering people or beating people up,
and then
and
you don't
choose not to.
Yeah, exactly. Then it's an actual choice. It's not just fake virtue.
Yes, it's not. Exactly. It's not an inability.
Yeah.
Do you know kind of way? It's an ability not to do something.
Yeah.
And there's something to the bullying thing there. I think if we were trained to be bullies, we'd recognize
it
when you're being a bully.
Yes,
because that's the problem is when people are being bullied, the people who are doing the bullying very rarely, if ever, go, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go over there and I'm going to fucking make that life I'm going to make his life miserable. I'm going to make, he's going to go home and he's going to fucking hate his life because I'm just going to fucking crush him. Like, they don't think like that.
No,
it's like, stay at your shoes, wanker.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of crack. But if you've been trained in it, you appreciate it for what it is.
Even if I think that could be an internal dialogue that's going on subconsciously nearly, that'll make their life misery, only they're making their own life misery by being a bully. It's so weird. Like, I love that line in the Smashing Pumpkins song, the Disarm, thanks Ivor. It was on during one of our sessions before, and the killer in you is the killer in me. It's such a powerful line. Like, it's and I think that's it. Like, they mightn't be consciously thinking, I'm going to make your life misery, but like, that's what they're doing to their own lives, whether they recognise it or not. So I think that's the learning that the bully needs to get, and the person being bullied needs to learn, I need to be able to stand up for myself, because there's bullies in the world.
Yeah, very much so.
You know,
as opposed to telling teacher, well,
no bullying, it's not allowed.
It's not, No. We've rules in
this school. Everyone's a winner. They all get a medal.
Yeah.
You can't be bullying because you were slower than the other person, and we're going to equalise everything. I don't know what cost.
That part of you that's intrinsic in every human being on the planet isn't tolerated here because it's in the rule book and it's under the list of banned things.
Yeah, it's like we could so easily just turn into a Huxleyan type world, especially with the tech and the power tech giants have now. We could just be so easily manipulated and controlled through this, or we can use it the way you're using it and try and take some power back and free ourselves with it. So I think that's the case with everything. Like, you can be enslaved by anything really, or you can be freed by anything. It's all perception. It's all consciousness. Like, it's what do you want to do. Like, it's just an infinite amount of possibilities. There really is.
And it's mad. What you have me thinking now is, like, when you're talking about using the technology, because we're all so different and obviously so much the same, but like, I'm playing with this and I've created this whole off the lead thing, and it's my pushback against people being on the lead and not being themselves and not being outspoken and all the rest of it. But that's just my thing. I'm playing, and that's my thing. I don't think people should do what I'm doing. I think people should play, and whatever that manifests itself as is what they should be doing.
Yeah,
well, do you know, kind of
whatever
way?
game you like.
Exactly. So like, I'm occupying a certain space, and this space mightn't be for you, or it mightn't be for the other guy, or whatever else. But we all have a space. Do you know, that kind of way? But I think, I don't know, there's just something innate in us that wants us to just to conform. And look, I'm wearing trousers and a top, and I'm conforming away.
Of course.
But there has to be a balance. If you're all conformity, do you know, that kind of way?
There's nothing new happening,
but there's no you.
Yeah,
you're just like, you may as well be a sheep, and you are. You're a prisoner.
Yeah.
You're told what to eat, when to eat, where to eat, and like the whole off the lead thing was originally a pushback. The way I used to phrase it was a pushback against what I see as the domestication of our species. I think we've domesticated ourselves. And I think
co-conspiracies.
Very much so. Very much so.
There's the elites and there's us that are all playing our part as well.
We are them.
Yeah,
we
sure.
we are
I'm you.
them.
You're me.
Yeah, no,
we're all the one.
It's fucking mad. But
well, you're definitely the elite, Ronnie.
I'm definitely what?
The elite.
Yes.
The 1%.
The 1%. But that's the other thing.
One law for you.
I'm keen to make a bigger point of is the idea that I'm fucking loaded.
Yeah.
And that I'm rich beyond most people's fucking apprehension.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't mean that I have a fucking yacht
Mansion
anchored
and
offshore,
yeah.
or
You
that I have a
kids
yacht.
and a wife and your health and your
But
happiness.
no, I actually mean financially.
Okay,
So
yeah.
outside of all that nonsensical
yeah.
family, children and stuff.
Philosophical nonsense.
No, but in a real, cash money
Intrinsic,
terms,
yeah.
I'm fucking loaded.
Yeah,
and what makes me loaded is I can pay my mortgage, I can pay my bills, I can eat. When I do my shopping, I'm not looking at, that one's 10 cents cheaper. If I wanted, I put it in the basket. And that to me is as rich as I ever need to be.
Yeah.
I don't need 10 cars and 500 acres. And I think if people started seeing what I have as the aspiration,
yes,
and not Jeff fucking Bezos or Elon fucking Musk,
impossible dreams, like
stupid dreams, stuff you don't want.
No.
And I think if people, the biggest thing that I'm inclined to push back against these days is class, because working class people a lot of the time seem to have set their sights on yachts and jets and all that kind of stuff that should be viewed as being repulsive.
Yeah.
You've got a private jet?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Have you been to your capital city? Have you seen the fucking homelessness?
Yeah.
What the fuck, man?
Yeah.
Like, how do these people live with themselves? I don't understand it.
Yeah, it's just too much. It's too much excess.
Big time. And I'm not promoting we should all be in line cloths, eating grass. Like, I want fibre optic broadband and a climate controlled house.
Yeah.
And with triple glazed windows and fucking all the trimmings.
Yeah.
But I don't need 875,000 square foot of a gaff.
For sure.
Do you know?
10 cleaners to keep on top of it all. Like,
exactly, and a fucking a manager to look after all my pets. do you know that kind of way?
Yeah.
Like, fucking, we can have everything. I feel like I have everything. There's nothing that I can't. There's nothing I can't really afford, to be honest.
And look, I think on the other side of it, I think the world, or whatever you want to call it, consciousness, the game we're in, I think it allows for everything. It allows people to be piss poor with nothing, struggling to eat, and then it allows for people to be at the absolute top of the pyramid, if you want to look at it that way, to have 50 jet airplanes. And look, you can argue about the ethics, but I think that's the way it's manifest. There's hierarchies, and I'm not the type of guy that wants to work every hour in the week, 150 hour week. Not in me. Don't want to do it. If Jeff Bezos wants to do it, more power to him. Let him have another floor on his mansion. Like, fair play to him. It'd be great if it can be, whatever, work in everyone's advantage. And it kind of does to a large extent. Like, Amazon is fantastic. There's a reason everyone's using it. But, I think it's good that the game is the way it is, that people can play just any game they want. And of course, there's a downside to it. There's trade-offs. And I don't know. I think people are guilty of zero-sum thinking. So, that guy has a mansion, so that means that person over there has nothing. And look, I'm sure there's truth in it. But that's not just the case, just because he's worked 100 hours a week. And look, some people are just born into it, whatever. But I think sometimes we think zero sum, just because someone has lots, we think that's at the expense of someone else. But, it's kind of like the Steven Pinker arguments, or them kind of optimist people. The things are improving, I think. We're improving all the time. I think it's too easy to dwell in the negative, fucking the world's warming up and we're all going to die, and, we are all going to die, so make the most of it. If you want to work 100 hours a week and whatever, get to be a CEO of some big corporation, more power to you. It's not for me, but, like, if that's what people want to do, you just have freedom. Again, it's choice. You can choose to do whatever you want. There's nothing stopping anyone. Fair enough, the opportunity I'm all about. I think if we could get equal opportunity, fantastic. Like that's what we should be aiming at. But equal outcome is an insane idea. Like, that's like anti-bullying laws and hate speech laws, and it's just, I think it's going to rear its ugly head in the future.
Yeah, I think it's a step too far as well. But I don't think that that's a step too far. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't take a step.
Yes.
So, like, I have no problem with people being super wealthy. Let's say if you're total and utter sum wealth, if you sold everything you had, and if your if all your wealth combined together was, let's say, 5 million, okay, you'd have
enough.
Well, not only you'd have enough, you'd have 100 times more money than I have.
Yeah.
But where should it be capped?
Yeah.
Like, okay, maybe not 5 million, maybe 50 million. Okay, what about 100 million? Okay, what about 500 million? Okay, fucking let's cap it at 500 million. But I mean, I think if being a billionaire, if the idea had been floated of banning billionaires ever becoming a thing, if that idea had been floated 100 years ago, people would laugh and say, "Sure, why would you bother?" Like, I mean, like what? Like, it'd be like somebody saying now, and I think we should do it. I think we should ban trillionaires. I don't think you should be allowed to become a trillionaire. Because in 30 years' time, we're going to have fucking trillionaires.
Yeah.
Do you know that kind of way? And like, I'm all for rising to the top of a hierarchy. I'm all for, you know, if you want to be insanely wealthy, you can be insanely wealthy. But there's a line. After that line, after that limit, it just gets gross.
Well, it's scary when a tech company is more powerful than any government.
But you see, this is the thing. Like,
they're making the new rules for everyone.
That is literally the argument.
That'd be my fear.
That I'm getting to. Here's one for you. You'll like this, I'm sure. The way I'm starting to conceptualise governments these days is HR departments for corporations.
Well,
that's what the regional HR departments.
And I see in kind of maybe not the flip, but on the same kind of line of thought, I see governments more and more getting tech companies to do things that they can't do constitutionally. So a government can't regulate your speech because it's protected by the Constitution, but a tech company can because they're
a private business and they can do what they fucking like.
Apparently they're a private business. So we really need to draw lines. I think these private businesses need to be considered a public utility at a certain point. Like, if Twitter is the, you know, whatever they like to say, the public square or whatever, it's becoming more like water than it is McDonald's. Like, so yeah, no, I'm definitely for, you know, governments need to be have more power. The people should have more power in their country than some outside tech company. At least I'd like to think that. But
well, here's one for you. Experiment this now when we get back working and all the rest of it. Try and pay as little tax as Google in Ireland. Good luck with that one. But like, it's, hang on a second, I'm a fucking citizen of this country, and they pay less tax than I do,
and earning millions. Look, I think the person who realises they have enough at whatever point of life they're in, if you realise, you know, people in the fucking camps in Nazi Germany realised they had enough, and they're the ones that got through it. So I think if you realise you have consciousness, you've got the most amazing gift imaginable. You have consciousness. You're a conscious being. Nothing beats that. Like, all the money in the world doesn't beat that. All the gold in the world doesn't beat that.
Yes, but it's hard to have that space. I think you need space to ever even become aware of that. And what I mean by that is, I've space, and I've had space for a couple of years now. So I've been financially secure. I wasn't for a long time. I had fucking 15 jobs over a 10-year period, bouncing from here to there because it just wasn't in me to work for other people. I didn't understand that about myself, and I was struggling to make bills, and it was fucking tough at times, and with all the rest of it. That's still very much, that's not 100 years ago, so I still kind of feel like that. You know, I still feel like a working class person. You know, that kind of way, even though I've probably financially, not these days because of fucking COVID, but spiritually, I'm certainly fucking I feel like I'm on an elite level, if that makes sense, kind of spiritually, especially in comparison to how I used to feel. But I suppose what I'm striving to get across is to be able to have the conversation that we're having, even to be able to sit down and have a 2-hour chat. A lot of people
on a Tuesday morning.
A lot of people, arguably most people in the world, don't have that.
For sure.
Because they're so constrained to having to be at work and having to fucking appease their cunt of a boss for their pittance wage, and then they're home with their kids, and they're, you know, their lives are pressure cookers, so they don't ever get the 5 minutes. You know, to let the fucking shoulders hang down. They spend their lives like this because they're so fucking poor, and they're so fucking stressed and wound up.
Yeah, or even that, like someone who'd be couldn't come onto the podcast because, what if my boss hears it? Like, Jesus, I couldn't imagine living with that kind of fear. And, how the person who fucking puts food on my table, monetarily speaking, the person who gives me my income could, decide to not give me an income because of a thing I said. I started talking about drugs online. Oh, we can't have you working for us anymore. Like, it's I kind of, in a super privileged position myself, but I think not a pushback, but like if people, Viktor Frankl, Edith, I can't think of her second name, another lady that was in the concentration camps in Germany, if they can find meaning, if they can find...
It's funny, and bear with me here, okay, because I really don't want to come across as implying that people in death camps had it easy. Okay, I don't want to, and I shouldn't. I don't know how I feel about cracking a joke about it.
Go on, sir.
No, just the joke in like them having it easy.
Yeah.
But they had time to think in a way that a lot of working class people don't.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Do you know that kind of way? Like,
yeah.
You could say the same for a prisoner. A prisoner mightn't have a lot, but he's got plenty of time to think. And I don't think...
if you're lifting a fucking 10 kilo or whatever, 20 kilo bag of salt 3 miles down a camp from one end to the other for no reason, and then a big satanic sign saying work will set you free.
Look, there was nothing more... There is nothing more evil than a concentration camp. Granted.
Yeah.
But...
I get you. They're kind of in an extreme situation, say, compared to a humdrum existence of, you're kind of pushed to that. There's nothing more extreme, you could say, than a concentration camp, maybe more so than it is. It's innately evil, but I think if you conceptualize it as absolutely extreme, like an extreme way of living and the edges of what humans have experienced, it's nearly like it's either you sink or swim. Whereas if you're in a humdrum 40-hour week, you can just kind of coast. Do you know what I mean? If you coast in the camp, you're probably going to die pretty soon. So if you're to survive the camp, you have to find God or find yourself or whatever you want to call it. Whereas in your humdrum existence, you can just kind of coast by, and them years of not speaking your mind and years of just being caught in a rut, that's its own hell. Like, it really is.
Oh, very much so. And it's a hell that I think arguably the majority of human beings on this planet are living. Just going from day to day, from living for the weekend, and not even living for the weekend, but
can't do that anymore.
Well, yeah, exactly. But
I feel sorry for them people. I think it's a big wake-up call, not to bang on too much about COVID, but I think the people who live for the pub and that, I think it's a big wake-up call for people. You need to find something else to do, like, or people that, how many marriages have fell apart during all of this, how many relationships have fell apart. Like, I think it really put things in focus for people, good and bad. Like, it's sorry, I forgot even where we were going there. But
no, it's just your ground. Such is the nature of the conversations. But I think what we originally started talking about there was the idea of your not even but a typical working class person's life in comparison. We're literally comparing it to fucking life in a death camp. Like,
yeah.
But I suppose the point that I was striving to get across was, in a concentration camp, as bad an example as that probably is, you had time to think, because everything was kind of, I was going to say everything was done for you, but
prison for sure. I think that kind of,
prison is probably a better example.
Because
there's literally nothing more evil than a fucking concentration camp or a death camp or whatever you want to call it.
But there's something, we're touching on something there kind of profound enough, I think, that, it's all very much what you make of it, I think, is what I'm trying to get at anyway. It's, I think, like, I'd really look to the people who have been through them really extreme parts of history, because if they can find meaning, like, then I think the onus is on people in their humdrum existence, people with a, dead-end job and a dead-end boss. Like, find meaning in something, or just get a new job, or maybe you don't have that luxury, but I don't know, read, find. You can spend an eternity in a minute if you want, like, or in no time at all. And either you wanna make it positive or you wanna make it negative. Like your consciousness can go anywhere. Like it can travel to the outer reaches of the universe if you let it.
I agree with you, but I think in order to fully grasp that, and certainly to embody it and to bring it into your life, you need
Space.
You need
I'd agree. Space. Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's the one thing that most working class people don't fucking have. It's space. It's 5 minutes peace to just see the wood from the trees.
For me, I think that's because maybe people have moved away from religion to a large extent. Like, I think going to your church, even if you only used to go once a week, like, an hour a week was a hell of a lot more than 0 hours a week. Do you know what I mean? I would have been kind of very skeptical of people who go to their mass once a week and kind of, oh yeah, you're Christian for 1 hour and then the rest of the week you go back to whatever it is that you're doing. 1 hour is a hell of a lot more than, you know yourself, with even exercise, anything. An hour a week is a hell of a lot better than nothing a week. So I think, yeah, that space people might be craving or need, that's you know, I think religion probably would have provided that for the people, and we're kind of moving away from it. And I don't know if it's all positive. Like, there's plenty of reasons to move away from it. You know, there's corruption at the top of any of these hierarchies, and it's very easy to let that taint everything else. But I said, like, people need to find their spirit. They really do. And if you can't get it in the church, find it somewhere else. Find a different church. Find philosophers. Find anybody that's, you know, speaking truisms, like things that are deeper than whatever the humdrum. Because this is a remarkable experience we're in. We're in a cosmic game, and like, if you can play, even if you're whatever, the bin man or the fucking road sweeper, you can be the best bin man in the world. You can be the best road sweeper. I know this sounds really fucking arrogant or something, because, you know, I haven't worked fucking shitty enough jobs, but nothing, you know, I haven't been down in sewers or fucking things like that, or on oil rigs, or fucking, you know, hardy work, fucking building sites, anything. Like, there's
yeah, but even the work that you've done here is fucking, you know, it's not without its painfulness. Like, it's monotonous.
Yeah.
It mightn't be backbreaking, but it's monotonous as fuck.
Yeah, but like, I had freedom here. I had freedom because you were my boss, and I could, you know, stick on my podcast or stick on. There's a lot of benefits to here. You know, had lots of privilege that you wouldn't have in a factory line where you have to listen to the radio or whatever.
Jeff Bezos' time and how long it takes you to go for a piss.
Yeah. Look at it. Feels even the I think. It's funny, it's like nearly the blue collar work, if you want to call that, the working class stuff is nearly more appealing now, because it seems like all the white collar stuff is all work from home, which is great in its own way. Like, I've friends that have been asking their employers to work for home for years.
Yes.
Couldn't happen. No, it just can't be done. As soon as COVID hit, they all had to work from home, and now the precedent is set, so they're delighted because they've wanted to work from home forever, so it suits them down to the ground. But I think for a lot of people, getting to work was getting out of the house, like, getting, as horrible as it sounds, getting away from the family, getting away from the missus, which is, you know, a problem in and of itself. Again, I think COVID has brought all this stuff to the forefront. But yeah, I think space is all in your mind. Like, you can give space to your pain, to your anxiety. You can give space to anything and everything. And I guess religious institutions would have been the kind of the actual physical space people would go to, and then they'd know, okay, I'm in God's house, whatever you want to call it. This is the place for me to kind of think about the deeper meanings of life and death and everything else. But yeah, I think the more we move away from that and the more we're moving into this tech stuff, it's becoming its own god that people kind of spend all their time. They're praying to the porn fairy, as Peterson would say. Yeah, I think we need to connect back to source, like, we really do. And
I'd be inclined to agree with you, but I don't know if the word religion is necessary.
Spirituality, you call it.
Okay, because I think religion, when people hear, or certainly when I hear religion,
piety and fucking say your prayers and your rituals. And
you come to this building of worship, and you fucking sit there and you listen.
Yeah.
Do you know that kind of way?
I'd be all for get yourself a direct connection to source. To me, God is self. Like that's what the Vedics would say. Anyway, that's what Brahman is. It's God is us. Like we are the self. Jung would say as well. That's basically what God is. It's self understanding itself.
Are you aware of anybody who's packaged what you're saying? And has the sound bite and has the answers.
The Tao Te Ching I'd highly recommend. They're simple little sentences, but and they all sound quite paradoxical. But just listen to one or two sentences. Type in Tao Te Ching into YouTube. It's like the first Peter X is the guy who uploaded it. I think his translation. I don't think it's his translation. The guy who uploaded it, but it's some of the translations are better than others. You could listen to 5 minutes of that and just chew on some of the sentences. You could literally listen to 2 or 3 sentences and leave that and running around your head for a month. It's a kaleidoscopic text. It's only about, in audio, it's only an hour and a half long, so I can't imagine it's much more than maybe 80, 90 pages, but wow, there's so much wisdom in it. It's fantastic. It really is.
Do we know who wrote it? Did Confucius write it? Was he around the same time?
No, he would have been around the same time. I think he's a contemporary of Confucius. Lao Tzu was his name.
Okay.
Translates something like the old boy or something like that. The idea being like you're again at play, you're wise, but you're at play. You're the old boy. You're like a master, but you act like a child. So you've got both elements going, because that's what we are. Like we are. You might think of yourself as whatever age you are now, but you are that child you once were. You are the person who's going to die. You've been round and round infinitely. Like it's the old man is contained in me right now, the same as the 1-year-old, the 2-year-old. It's all here right now. It's just waiting to unfold. Again, sidetrack. Lao Tzu is the author of Tao Te Ching, and I'd highly recommend it to anyone. It's powerful stuff. It really is.
And that's the Vedic text. So that's the
that's Chinese. That's
what I was going to say. Who were the Vedics? Because I thought Confucius and all that was Chinese.
Confused Chinese. Vedics would be the Indians.
The Indus River Valley civilization. Always fucking mess that up. Always mess that up. Indus River Valley civilization.
I think so. India, the subcontinent, anyway. Yeah.
Yes.
India, East Asia, kind of going over towards Pakistan, and
because whenever not we particularly, not me and you, but whenever I'm chatting to somebody about kind of ancient wisdom, Taoism is Chinese and it comes from the Yellow River Valley civilization. Then was that Taoism? No, where did you say Taoism?
That's Chinese.
Yeah, that's Chinese.
Yeah, not sure
then
where.
What were you saying was from India?
The Vedic.
Okay, so the Vedics
Sanskrit language. And,
Sanskrit and the Vedics, that was all the Indus River Valley civilization. Then you had Mesopotamia, which had... What were the ancient texts in Mesopotamia? Can you remember?
Ooh, was that Sumerian? No, sorry,
well, it would have been. Yeah, Sumer
would have.
Sumer was in Mesopotamia.
Okay,
it was one of the cities. So the Sumerian texts that's there in there, and then you have the Egyptians, which had their
Book of the Dead, and
exactly.
Yeah.
And then you had the ancient Greeks,
yes,
which is where
Plato
Western philosophy essentially, and the modern Western world essentially springs from.
The ideas of democracy and
yes,
governments by the people, yeah.
And Christianity then is taken a bit from all of them, is it?
I think mostly an offshoot of Egyptian.
Okay.
I think the most parallels would be like a lot of the Egyptian texts were nearly the same as Christian. So I think a lot of it would stem from Egyptian mythology or whatever you want to call it.
Okay, so sorry to be quizzing
No,
you
no,
now on
again,
ancient civilizations.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be great on history, dates, and facts. Like,
No, but it's not even that. It's just the sentiment. So the idea being that there's been, call it 5 major civilizations from ranging from 2 to 10,000 years ago that we know of, that all our quote unquote modern wisdom essentially stems from. And I just think the reason that has me thinking about this is when you say people should go back to religion, an Irish person will hear we have to go back to the Catholic Church.
But
that's not what you're saying at all. And I know that, but I'm just trying to flesh it out for myself.
I'm not to say that you shouldn't do that. That's what you want to do. I think fantastic. There's a lot to be gleaned in Christianity and Catholicism. Look, we all know the evils and the horrors that went on. Fucking mass graves, children being sold into slavery, basically.
And go on.
Yeah,
there's often a past tense.
Oh yeah,
that
used to go on. Yeah, but you have it in Hollywood, you have it in politics, you have it everywhere. At the top, there's corruption in people. It's not in institutions. Like, I really don't look at it. Can become institutionalized, and it's obviously a problem. And the Catholic Church, if you want to say it that way, individuals within it have sins to answer for. And I'm not here to defend fucking pedophiles at all. But again, I wouldn't claim you need to move to Catholicism. There's plenty of different routes to source. For me, psychedelics is first-hand experience. Like, and for me, you can't beat that. Like, it's if you want to discover more aspects of yourself or God or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, for me, psychedelics are certainly, they're kind of like a legitimate shortcut. Or like, I like how I think it's the Zen Buddhists say something like it's like being brought to the top of a mountain, but then the downside of it is kind of the next day you're maybe back to the bottom of the mountain again. So, gradual practice, be it meditation or whatever you're into, prayer, worship, fucking whatever it is. A slow ascent up the mountain is a more long-lasting thing, but the way I'd see that is, good to be able to see the view from the top, get a picture even of what it looks like from the top, then you know what you're climbing towards. So that'd be my take on that. But again, psychedelics certainly aren't for everyone as well. But for me, they're a means of getting direct contact with Gaia, God, whatever you want to call it, self. Who knows, the unknown, the mystery of the universe. It's like just becoming pure energy and dissipating into the fabric of what is, and your body ego disappears. You're gone. You're dead for all intents and purposes, and it's okay. It's okay to die. That's what's going to happen to us all. And I think that's what religions have been pointing out towards forever, or spirituality gurus, whatever you want to call them. It's been trying to point John Lennon, any of them, any great artists, that's what they're all pointing towards. There's more to this thing than what meets the eye. There's way more. We don't know the depths of the self. We don't know anything really, like, but we're learning, and we're it's a continuing thing. It's an endless journey. It really is. It's eternal. That's what God is, or the self. That's what people have been saying forever. It's something it's unfathomable, like something without beginning or end. Everything we know is temporal bound. Like, there's a start, middle, and end. You're born, you have your middle age, and then you die. And the atheists think that's the end. Like, that's because there's nothing else. How can you claim there's anything else without any proof? Well, I'd argue, fucking take a psychedelic and see what happens. Like, it's your body can disappear and your consciousness can go anywhere at all. So yeah, I think that's what all religions have been trying to say forever. It's, well, part of it anyway. I don't claim to have the answers or anything, but yeah, I think if you want space in your mind and space to be able to find yourself and be yourself, I think religion has always been a part of that. For me, it's Bhagavad Gita has a great quote. I've probably said on this before, but religion without philosophy is fanaticism, and philosophy without religion is mental speculation. So the two together is where it's at. Like, it's you need action. Like, to me, religion means action. It's what you do, and it's not, I go to that building once a week for an hour. Not that there's something wrong with that, but that's all you're doing. It's very much, it's again in the Tao Te Ching, they say ritual is the husk of faith.
Ritual is the husk of faith.
Yeah. So it's when faith kind of dies away, when people don't really believe in what they're doing. All they're left with is these rituals, and it's not true faith. Like, I mean, better you have a ritual than nothing. But and you know, rituals are important, but ritual needs to tie in with actual belief and actual faith. And
I think in an Irish context, we seem to be left with the husk.
oh, lots of ritual, yeah.
You know, like we have, and I think we're trying to. I think when the idea is floated of kind of when the idea is floated of getting back to religion and getting back to God or whatever, what we seem to do, I think, is we're performing CPR on the husk of a body. Do you know that kind of way? Like, I don't think we, and that's why I think I'm so drawn to the ancient civilizations, because I think if we go back to what they said, we're dealing with something of substance. I think what they were doing and what they said, I think that can be revived. But I don't think we can revive what we have, which is, like, let's say, Catholicism in Ireland.
in its current form, say.
Or in its current form, or even in the form that it's been in over the last 100 years. Because whatever about the death grip that the church has now, it's nothing like it was 50 or 100 years ago, or for the past 300 years.
And I think good and bad. Like, I'm fairly disappointed in Catholic Church in the past, maybe, 3 or 4 years during this pandemic. Like, they haven't said a word, just shut their doors and end of, and we're just going to go with the status quo. And fair enough, there's probably wisdom in that. You don't want to be putting your head above the parapet, but, like, I mean, the whole idea of man can't live by bread alone, that seems to have gone out the window. Like, we're doing our little tech masses, and there's no, like, I mean, what's a Catholic Church without communion? Like, they're meant to, like, the Holy Communion is meant to be a communion with God. Like, literally, it's meant to be a communion with God. It's meant to be the one of the most important parts of, it's what separates Catholicism from, say, nearly any other branch, Protestants, whatever. So, you know, they're doing their online mass. I know my folks go to it every day, and that's grand. But like, what's Catholic mass without communion? And the same. So I know some priests kind of went against the grain last year. They gave out the first Holy Communion to the kids, the 8-year-olds. But, like, most of the country just waited, and most of the churches have just shut their doors and said, whatever, no, we're just going to go with whatever the advice is from the experts. And look, there's wisdom there. Then again, with the abortion referendum as well, they didn't say a word. Now, I asked my parents, I don't be going to the church, so I wouldn't know. She said they kind of were preaching from the pulpit, but not much use in that when, you know, the people you need to convince are out in the streets. And look, whatever way you feel, you're pro-choice, pro-life, I just think if you're the Catholic Church, you should probably stand up for what you hypothetically believe in publicly. So yeah, I think it's good and bad that I think mostly good that the church and state have been kind of separated, but not great that they're just disappeared from the public discourse altogether, as far as I can see. Now, maybe within its own church walls, they're still talking about what they believe in, but you're preaching to the choir, really, at that rate. But yeah, I think I'd consider myself probably, like, I think I'm a Christian, whether we like it or not. Like, we all have, you're Francis, I'm Paul, we all Patrick, whatever the English translation, we have Christian names, we've Christianity's in our blood, whether we like it or not. Like, it's the world around us, the buildings, the structures, literally people's names, the way we do things. It's all wrapped up in Christian mythology. So, like, you can ignore it and say you're not a Christian, and you can be cynical about it. But I mean, I think it was again, doesn't matter, keep looking for quotes, but we dream Christian dreams, even if I think even atheists dream Christian dreams, whether they know it or not. Like it's
if Christianity was to a large degree born out of the Egyptian culture, could you just as easily make the same point that we're as Egyptian as we are Christian?
Yeah, to a large extent, and not only that, Christianity subsumed nearly, it's something Anthony Murphy said actually on one of his podcasts. Christianity subsumed all the old pagan beliefs as well. So if you want to be a pagan, be a Christian, because it's like paganism only with a big veneer of Christianity over it, because they just changed everything we believed in and just kind of changed the name. So all Souls Day, Halloween became a Christian holiday, and Christmas was an old pagan belief. We turned that into a Christian belief, or it's got pagan elements. So nearly every single Christian holiday that there is tied up with some old pagan beliefs as well.
You see, this is what bugs me about Christianity, because another thing that they've done, and I remember Hitchens put me onto this back in the day, was, so in Ireland you're raised to, you're taught that you're part of a flock. But in countries that they don't have sheep, you're taught that you're all swine if they have pigs. And there's a shape-shiftingness that we can just, we have this formula and we can just apply it to wherever we want and just tweak it to suit you.
Suit the beliefs of the people. Stuff. Give you something you already know, so you'll swallow it easier.
Exactly.
Like a bit of sugar in the medicine. Like
there's something I love and hate about that.
Yeah.
So I love the way that it kind of works, and that there's an inherent trueness there if your core thing works with everyone, and you just tweak it to their surroundings. So you talk about mountains to people who are in mountainous areas, and you talk about flatlands to people who are in flat areas, but the sentiment of it all stays the same. I think Christianity, in no small part due to the Catholic Church, has just been, like, when I hear Christianity, I think evil. That's the knee jerk.
So
that's the knee jerk.
And there's so much wisdom and so much beauty in it. Like, it's the story of Jesus is an archetype, because you can't stretch a narrative any further. You can't. He's the most good person who suffers the worst possible outcome. Like, there's no greater story than that. Like, you can't stretch a narrative any further. Like, the person who is the hero, just the best person ever, and dies the worst possible death. Like, that's why it's an archetype. You literally can't stretch the story any further than that. So there's so much beauty in every religion, but like, it's too easy to be cynical about these things. It's a lot more difficult to try and separate wheat from chaff, to try and find what's good. And I think that's why a lot of people gravitate towards Peterson and that, because he's doing that job of honestly delving into things. And some people would accuse him of whatever, word games and fucking
Jesus smuggling.
Yeah, I love that. And look, I'm sure there could be elements of truth to that, but I think you can find wisdom everywhere and anywhere. And look, if Christianity isn't for you, and you want to try something different, Like, read. I think the Tao Te Ching, nearly every religion, because it's all pointing in the same direction. It doesn't matter what route you go. Like, it's gonna, if it gives you meaning, gives you purpose. Like, that's what it's all about.
What's the unifying theory of all the religions? Have we spoke about that before? That idea. So have you, in science, there's an attempt to discover what would be called the unifying theory of science.
Oh, in physics,
yeah. So it would.
Theory of everything, like
exactly. The TOE, theory of everything. So whatever it is, it has to take relativity, which is Einstein's baby, and quantum mechanics, which was it Feynman? I can't remember. It doesn't matter.
Sure, yeah.
But general relativity works perfectly, never goes wrong, works perfectly, and quantum mechanics works all the time, works perfectly. and they're both independently 100% completely right, but they oppose each other.
Yeah.
You know, and the idea of the unifying theory is to come up with a theory that it's the ultimate that's how the world works kind of thing.
Well, I think religion is not religion, spirituality, if you want to be new age about it, is the only way of getting to the theory of everything, because it's the only mechanism's wrong word. It's a way of unifying everything, getting away from polarization, of looking at everything as a whole, as a universe, whereas science is all about breaking things apart and understanding each particular thing.
Well, science is a method.
Yes. And I think spirituality, religion is kind of like a method as well, only it's a method of understanding the whole rather than the parts. I think science is all about understanding the parts. That's not to say that it won't eventually get to the whole. Maybe it will. I think that's what the atheists believe. But I don't think science will ever. I love the David Hume quote, you can't get an ought from an is.
Yes.
So you can't, like, you can have a million facts about this table, it won't tell you how to cook a dinner or how to have a family meal properly. That's what religion is for, spirituality. I think what I'd see unifying in all religions, and Joseph Campbell would be a great man to delve into. He done a lot of comparative mythology, so comparing all the different world religions to one another and seeing what's common and what's maybe unique. But how I'd see what unifies everything is the idea of a fully realized person is basically God manifest. Like, it's someone who is being their self, their true self. That is God in action. And I think that's what nearly all religions point to.
When are you being your true self? When you're playing?
When you're playing, yeah, I think so. Yeah, when you're doing...
Because I think when you're playing, you're not doing anything in particular. You're just
playing.
Being.
Yeah. I love, it's in the Tao Te Ching again, which translates as the Book of the Way. They say, there's no difference between the dancer and the dance. The dancer and the dance are one, like what you're saying with play there. When someone's completely engaged with play, there's no difference between you and what you're playing with. I love Alan Watts's phrase on it, do you do it, or does it do you?
Yes.
I really like that, because I think that's where we're at. Like, it's, yeah, the dancer and the dance are one. You see, some people, artists might call it, or when you're training, you're in the zone.
Yeah, a flow state.
Flow state, exactly. In the zone, in flow. I think that's all pointing at the same thing, where you lose this sense of individual self, and you just...
And time, more so. Time is, I think, is the loss of time is a definitive aspect of flow. I think
definitely
that you're and it, like this, like we're in flow. Like, I can't see the screens. I don't know how long we're talking, but I wouldn't be shocked if we were on the 3 hour mark.
Same,
Do you know, kind of way?
Have a clue.
Or the 20-minute mark.
Because we're playing with each other, like,
yes.
we really are. Yeah.
And we're in a certain flow state.
For sure. I mean, again, I can't say enough. I'm honoured to be here. Deadly. I'm honoured to be the first person on this. Fucking, it's class. Like, really is.
Really honoured to fucking have you.
Class. Cheers.
Enough blowing smoke up. That's another thing that's fucking mad, though, isn't it? Like, our inability to take a compliment.
Yeah,
like, isn't it? Fucking,
because
you've said it a couple of times, fair play to you, and the second you start talking,
I'd rather some criticism.
But that's the thing too, I don't fucking want criticism, man. Whatever you do, don't criticise me.
Des is a good man for that. He's saying we're always complimenting each other behind each other's backs.
Yes, very much so.
He's great.
He put me wide to that now, big time.
Yeah, no, it's a great, like, tell someone to their face if they've done something that you enjoyed or whatever it is, like, compliment them to their face, not behind their backs.
But again, like the bullying, like the spirituality, like playing, we're hitting on another thing here that's so fucking deep. It's incredible, because, like, I was never explicitly taught, don't give him a big head. Like, like, but it's all in us.
Yeah,
it seems to be.
Yeah.
No, it's maybe it's an Irish thing. I'd often wonder when I'm thinking about things that is it an Irish thing or is it, you know, a global thing or what? Because I don't think Americans have that problem at all. They love bigging people up, like, do you know that kind of way? Like they'll share you in compliments, and they're better at giving and receiving compliments. They're all about it, like. But here, we're terrified that, you know, it's almost as though it's almost as though making somebody feel good about themselves will give them brain cancer. but there, you know, like, there's something, Jesus, whoa, fuck, you about to give him a compliment. Like, you know, fucking hell, leave him alone. Like, as if it was this kind of terrible thing. It's a weirdness, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's probably born out of fear and doubt and just fucking self-destructive nonsense. Like, and look, I'm sure there's definitely, like we were saying with the bullying, there's a place for being an asshole to people. Like, there's sometimes it's maybe the accurate response to a situation. Like,
but you see, as you said at the start, if there's no being an asshole to people, there's no being nice to people.
Exactly. It's yeah, and again, like we were saying as well, it's the image of the hero with the sword. They know how to use the sword, but to keep it to keep it in its sheath. Like, that's what it's all about. Like, learning how to master yourself, but then to not control other people, like, and even not to control yourself, but know how to control yourself, and then let yourself be free. Like, it's not these kind of what seems like paradoxical language, but I think it always gets paradoxical when you're trying to point out what is, like, what's real, because there's, you know, it's kind of beyond what the eye sees or what it's the eye of the mind. Like, it's a different, it's symbolical, it's subtle. Like, it's hard to elucidate what actually is, because we're so wrapped up in, you know, in the 24-hour clock and the whatever, the work you have to do, and
well, that's all ego though, isn't it? I mean, that's all, like, the way I've been thinking about it of late, and I've covered a good bit of this in the solos, is the idea that whatever you in its entirety is split into two. Call it what you will. Call it ego and soul. I think that's what I started out with, was ego and soul. And it's changed. You could call it mind and spirit, you know, but the idea basically is that your mind or your ego or whatever that is, that speaks English. That, you know, it speaks English, and your soul or your spirit, it doesn't speak English. It can't comprehend language, but it can comprehend narrative,
feeling,
and it's in the domain of feelings. So it doesn't understand English, say, but it doesn't understand words, but it understands narrative. So it mightn't understand the individual things that you're saying, but if I started giving you a load of abuse now, you'd feel it,
yeah,
and it's your soul that feels that, even though it didn't understand the words, if that makes sense. So that's what I've been kind of grappling with, is this sense that we're kind of split between two, and it's the ego or the mind or your consciousness that navigates the world, and it's something else that's the domain of feelings that brings all the meaning to your life, if that makes sense.
For me, I don't know, it's hard when you try to put things in boxes, especially when I think that, for me, it's good. Consciousness is the whole game. Like, that's what source is. It's just it's white light. Like, and then the white light, that it's a Christian symbol, I suppose, for God. The white light, and then, you know, like the prism, when it contains every other color except black, or does it contain black?
Black's not a colour.
Yeah, exactly. It's the absence of light. But you won't know light without the dark. Like, that's the universe. You can't see the stars shine without the blackness of space, which we don't know what all that dark stuff is. Fundamentally. So yeah, I think consciousness is the ultimate. I think that's, and then ego is everything else. How we try to define consciousness, basically. I'm a whatever. I'm a grower. I'm a whatever builder. I'm a this. It's the I maker. Whatever. Ego is what says I am this, but it's always wrong, because it's the ego. Like, it doesn't know the truth. Like, it really doesn't. Ego is the thing that gets hurt when someone insults you. Your truer self, your consciousness, it's just, doesn't come close. Like, it's your true self can't be hurt. Your true self is love. Like, that's all it is. Just love, boundless love.
You see, there's a failure in language. I think it always breaks down, for me at least. Like, because when you said it's love. When I hear people say things like that, I do. But it's not that I kind of go, it's I lose you. It's like,
yeah.
It's kind of like, oh no, he said the love. But there's something, I don't know what it is, and just in keeping with my thoughts on, let's say you have your forgetting about consciousness, because I think consciousness is a tricky word, because for me at least, when I hear somebody talk about consciousness, I think of what unconsciousness is.
Yeah, so awake or asleep kind of thing.
Yeah, so unconsciousness to me is when the ego goes offline.
Okay, yeah.
Which doesn't make sense if consciousness is other than the ego, if that makes sense. But forget about that for 2 seconds. So the way I'm starting to conceptualize it is that we're split between our thoughts and our emotions, essentially. Call it that, with thoughts and emotions. But that emotions are yellow and thoughts are blue, and together they get green. If I have my fucking primary colours right there. But you know what I mean?
Enough, yeah,
the two of them come together and create its own thing.
Yeah.
That they're two separate parts, but they're inextricably linked, and they become a new thing. And you can separate them, but they're not that thing anymore. So when you take psychedelics, and I'd say if you take enough of them, you become all soul in my terminology. But that's not you. You're losing a bit of you, because you're
losing your ego. So.
Well, yeah, no, absolutely. You're losing your ego, or your mind, or the thing that speaks language, the eye maker, as you put.
Yeah,
you're losing that. And that's why I think that. So I think when you take psychedelics, you have an ego death, as it's called, and you experience your soul, say. But then you come back into you come out of the experience, and you find it impossible almost to articulate it, because your soul doesn't speak English. And that's why we always struggle to put our emotions into language, because as the way I conceptualize it, our soul doesn't speak English. It doesn't communicate in that sense. It's more of a feeling.
I think, again, back to music. I think music or mandalas represent it better than I don't think language can, because I think language is all born in ego. It's all about particular things, not the whole, the parts. It can't talk about the whole, because it doesn't. It needs to talk about the parts, so you can get from point A to point B, and you can have your narrative. You can have your start, middle, and end. But yeah, when you're talking about the whole, I think a mandala or anything where there's layered patterns of meaning, I think that's what life is. That's what consciousness is. It's
sorry to cut across, but when you say mandala, you're talking about like a fractal.
Exactly.
Okay,
yeah,
sorry, no, that's okay. Just so we're on the same page.
100%. Yeah, I think and you'll see it if you watch. Do you ever see like cymatic videos where they're putting frequencies, say sounds or music through? You'll have a vibrating plate
with sand or something,
on, exactly, and it'll make different shapes depending on what frequency you go through it. So you literally see mandalas being created when we're talking to each other. We're sending layered patterns of meaning through the airways. That's how we're communicating to one another. So I think music and mandalas are kind of, they're a portal into the self. Like that's what they're for. That's why mandalas were created. I think that's how Carl Jung came up with a lot of his stuff as well, was through drawing mandalas, and that's how he literally got a window into himself. It's really strange. Like, it sounds so odd or just maybe unbelievable or nonsensical, but I think a lot of the greatest truths do sound like nonsense. Like, they really do. That's why they're true. Like, it's the child that play. I mean, you're looking at the child that play, you think, so what are they doing? They're up to fucking nothing. Like, but they're soaking it all in. Like, they're learning.
They're truly living.
That's my rant.
That's what?
That's my rant.
No, but like it's all good stuff. But I think what we started off talking about in that particular segment, say, was the idea that there could at least be a unifying theory of all religions. Now you could possibly argue that, and maybe that's what Christians do argue, is it that Christianity is the unifying theory of the religions?
Yeah, I suppose they depends on what branch. There's so many different branches and lines of thought. I know, say, Orthodox Christians, they'd be kind of more, I don't know, something that they believe in. What I was saying, they believe in theosis is the ultimate. So that's the idea that what we're saying, the fully realized person is God manifest. So the person who is just being themselves, that's the idea of Orthodox Christianity anyway, is to basically become God. Same as Hinduism, same as Buddhism, same as whatever, Taoism, nearly all religions, I think. It's that's the point basically. It's to become God.
Okay, so in keeping with that,
Just become one with God, if you want to be a bit more maybe Catholic about it, because they kind of have their separation. You're part of God, but I don't think Catholics would really believe you become God yourself.
God is very much separate, and that's what I'm actually going to drill into if I can. So the idea is that back in the Dizzy, when we were literally evolving and creating societies well before Mesopotamia, well before the Indus Valley, well before Egypt, maybe only on Africa. I don't know. We don't really know our human history. But at some point, independently, we all started talking about this idea of some sort of a higher power or a god. In our transitional period from animals, call it Australopithecus or whatever, however far you want to go back.
Yeah, we were mushrooms at one point, I think.
You are, yeah, exactly, yeah. So going back to, let's say, Australopithecus, so we're upright apes. And we start living in bigger and bigger groups, and we start having to have rules to manage how many people there are and all the rest of it. And we start talking about God, essentially, or put whatever name, whatever title you want on it, a higher being, something more than us. What I'm beginning to think now, all of that was, and everything that came after it, was there's a divine, for want of a better term, there's a divine power inside of you. But in order to convince people of how powerful this divine power was, we had to abstract it, because it was too much of a bridge to cross to tell people that they had infinite divine power within them. So they abstracted it. So they created this man in the sky who was all seeing, all knowing, all powerful, and all the rest of it. But the idea is that if you can pray to it and look up to it, and have it as something worth aspiring to, maybe then you might realize that God that had to have been abstracted for you to realize how powerful it was. Then you say, that God that you now believe in, he's inside you.
Do you know
that kind of way? So we had to abstract it to comprehend its power.
Yes.
And then you have to bring the story full circle. You have to internalize it.
Yeah, the Greeks would have definitely, that was their way of thinking to a large extent. They had a god for everything, kind of like the Indians as well. You were possessed by the god of war
when you were angry, or the god of love when you were in love.
Exactly. And it's a really, really good, interesting way of conceptualizing things.
They just abstracted our emotions, did they?
A lot, I think so. And turned them into gods, because they are like, it does seem like you're, again, in flow, or and you're in love, it's like you're something driving you that isn't exactly you. So yeah, I think it's certainly, I like that, just what you outlined there, the idea that we kind of abstracted it. But then there's a danger when it becomes so, what would the word be? When you abstract it too much, it becomes, I can't think of the word I'm looking for now. If God can be anything, it basically becomes nothing. So it becomes arbitrary is the word I'm looking for. If it's too abstract, like if God is everything and anything,
Yeah, if this is God, if that is God, if everything is God, nothing is God.
exactly, it becomes absolutely
and that's
arbitrary.
why we had the man in the sky type thing.
Yeah, and exactly, and then life itself becomes arbitrary. And I see that maybe some of my friends that are Muslims, they kind of still, I think they're in that kind of phase of their spiritual development that God is this ultimate, there's absolute separation. We are not God, like specifically not God. We are.
That's a straight up Islamic thing, or is that your mate's take on it?
That's my mate's taking it, but he would be quite scholarly. Like he'd be, I think he could.
He's following the Quran basically in his thinking.
Exactly, yeah. He wouldn't be an Islamist now. He's not fucking extreme, but he'd praise Allah in Mecca. Would be their way of putting it. He wouldn't believe in, we need a Muslim state. He wouldn't be extreme in that way. He'd follow the Quran and the way, our parents would follow Christianity or Catholicism. They'll separate the wheat from the chaff kind of thing. But yeah, his description before, and look, it's kind of, I'm sure there's truth in it, but he'd consider us like children in a sandbox. And we're obsessed with the sand. Like, we don't know what God is. God put the sand there and put us there. And God is this absolutely, as you said, the man in the sky, without fucking belittling what he believes in. But it's very much God is nearly arbitrary because it's something way humans could never comprehend God, basically. Which is, I wouldn't buy into that at all. I would have at one point, but now I'm kind of, I think it was actually, was it Thomas Aquinas or St. Peter? One of them kind of made that argument as well. God is infinitely complicated. There's no way for humans to ever understand them. Then there's other saints that came down further down the line that kind of argued against it. But yeah, he'd very much have that kind of concept of the world. It's kind of depressing nearly that we're kids in a sandbox playing with the sand, thinking we're special when we're not really. But then life itself, if God is arbitrary, life itself is arbitrary. And I can see that in him, like he'd be a little bit depressed. And I think to him, life is to some degree arbitrary. So yeah, there's a danger if God becomes everything, it's basically nothing. So I think that's what we need to do. We need to make God a reality, like not something that's just abstracted out of existence.
Yeah, it's funny. As you're talking, I'm just being flooded with different fucking things to say and to explore. One thing that kind of not scares me, but one thing that I don't like about the idea that we can't understand what God is, whatever God is, and I don't know why, but I think that for me at least, there's an element of God is so powerful and so mysterious and so all the rest of it that you can't understand him, Porrick Riley. So that's why you have to come to the church.
Yeah, we've got it all delineated.
Because I don't have it, but between all of us, we have a better chance of understanding it than you. You have no hope.
Yeah, go to the hierarchy.
Coming through us.
Yeah. But look, and there's loads of different ways of looking at that as well. Like, I would have been very cynical during my kind of teenage years about Catholicism, organised religion, just terrible idea. Especially hierarchical organised religion, even worse again, because as you're describing there, it's fucking, you go to the priest and he'll tell you about God, and it's in Latin, he's speaking a language you don't even understand, but you're supposedly learning about God. But then, without that hierarchy, like, there's a major problem in Islam. Without the hierarchy, there's no one to say, that's terrorism, this is true Islam. At least in Christianity, Catholicism, hypothetically, there's someone you can point the finger. The Pope is meant to be at the top of the hierarchy now. Yeah, I know.
How
exactly.
many years after Hitler's death did the Pope celebrate his birthday? Way too fucking many. Way too many.
Yeah, should have tried to ban the idea of the number 0 at one point.
Who did?
The Pope. I forget which Pope, but hundreds of years
Devil's
ago.
work.
Devil's work, yeah. 0 is like, oh Jesus, that's an attack on God. So look, they've lots of sins to answer for, but yeah, look, I think I'd be more along the maybe shamanistic approach. Like, you can go into that church and he'll talk about God, or you can come into my sitting room and eat this, and you can experience God for yourself. Like,
Yeah.
which isn't for everyone. Like, that has its own dangers for sure. Like, that's wouldn't be just proselytizing.
It's funny though, because the biggest danger there is the fact that it's fucking illegal. That's the biggest danger.
Big time. Yeah.
Because at least if it was legal, you know, you could, like we were talking about with cannabis earlier, you could go into the shop and you could, you know, in the same way that you'd walk into a pharmacy and talk to the pharmacist, you'd be able to walk into a shop where somebody who would be as experienced in psychedelics, say, you'd be able to sit down and book yourself in for a consultation, sit you down.
It's happening.
It is. In drips and drabs, it is happening, and fair play to everyone who's fighting that good fight to make it happen. But again, like the music, you know, it's like your man Hamilton Morris's analogy with music.
Yeah, you don't want to call it
psychedelics
medicine.
is a bit like that, if not entirely like that. You
People
know?
get that's why I'm kind of cautious about the whole medical route as well. I think, you know, if you want to do them recreationally, do them. Like, fucking, you know, mightn't be my way of doing it. I might argue against it, but I mean, like, that's what you want to do it. You want to take any drug recreationally, do it. If you want to use it religiously or spiritually, you're probably going to get way more out of it. You're just going to get different things out of it. But back to what we had been talking about, that kind of God and it being abstract and then trying to understand God. Something popped into my head. Again, it's Tao Te Ching again. I've really been reading that a lot. You can't, they're not talking about, they call it the way. So I kind of conceptualize the way as just consciousness unfolding, basically, is the way. They say you can't understand the way, but you can be it. So, and to be it, it's all about surrender. It's like the things you learn on a psychedelic. It's all about letting go and surrendering to your higher self, and that's how God becomes manifest, through your actions and through your words. But it only comes when you've kind of dropped the ego to a large extent and like actually try to discover who you really are. Not all the things you're told you are, who other people tell you are, what job you do, or all that. Not that stuff's unimportant, it's important. You gotta keep your physical body going, you gotta feed yourself and feed your family, but there's, again, man can't live by bread alone. Like, we need these deeper insights. You know, death is coming, so
It's coming to get you.
Yeah, it really is. It really, and it's not. I think it's a good thing. Like, it's you can be fearful. What's the point? Like, I don't think it's the end. It's just constant cycle.
Yeah, you've reminded me of, I think it's a Confucius quote again, and again I'll be paraphrasing this as always, but the sentiment will be there. Every man has two lives. What is it? Every man has two lives. And you start living your second as soon as you realise you've only one. I love that.
Say that again.
I mightn't have that perfectly, but everybody has two lives. Like, every man or woman and child, whatever it is, everyone has two lives. And you start living your second life when you realise you've only one life.
Yeah.
Do you know that kind of way? So it's not until you kind of realise,
this is it. You're here.
well,
you've made
much,
it. Like, you've made it. Live
okay,
it.
right, Jesus! Like, and I had a touch of that, and I've spoken about this again. When I was suicidal and nearly did away with myself, there was an element of, now this came with fucking a lot of time after the fact, but and I'm left with this residual. I could very easily have killed myself. I came fucking that close. And just to flesh that out for you and anyone who's listening, I had a plan, had a date, said goodbye to friends and family, literally and figuratively. Closed the door on people knowing, Jesus, that's the last time I'll see them. But what has come out of the wash over the years and decades since is that there's an element of everything that I have now is like bonus material. Do you know that kind of way? This is
a rebirth, like.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, very, very much so, and very, very synonymous with the whole ego death and psychedelics.
Die in your lifetime if you can, like, before your actual temporal death.
People who have near-death experiences experience this. People who get strokes. People who a very good friend of herself, of Ruth. She I won't mention names, but I'll keep it as vague as I can. But to cut a long story short, was at home one evening enjoying a glass of wine, reached for the bottle, slipped, fell, bust her head open on the radiator, rushed to hospital. 18 staples across her head to close the wound. Next morning, was grand basically, but wasn't going home anytime soon. We have to scan your head and make sure you're all right. Exactly, yeah, just suss it all out. And golf ball sized brain tumour, and they've removed it, and she's been given 5 years. She's in her early to mid 40s, I think.
It's young, yeah.
But
and they wouldn't have discovered this tumour because of the head trauma, or the head trauma maybe spurred it on.
She told the doctors, I think, now again, I obviously wasn't there, but my understanding is she told the doctors that she slipped reaching for the wine, and the doctors are inclined to think that she didn't slip, she had a seizure.
Okay.
She was just there sitting, enjoying her wine, and just went, and fucking hit the head.
Yeah.
And what she's left with is, thank fuck it happened in my kitchen and not on the M50.
God, yeah.
So she can't drive now for whatever amount of years she has left, and she can't drink, and she can't do different things, whatever else. But her attitude to the whole thing, I don't know if you call it typical, but she sees it as getting her life back.
Wow.
Do you know that kind of way?
Yeah,
Like
she's
she's all about embracing the few years that she has left, because I can't remember the exact terminology of what it is that she has, but no one has ever gone past 5 years of it being diagnosed. Do you know that kind of way? So I think 5 years is her upper limit, and I think she only has that because they were able to remove it, and they only removed it because she had to fall or whatever else. But you'll often hear people with like cancer diagnoses and different things like that it was an awakening for them.
Yeah,
and like, it's funny, just as I said, awakening out loud there, like, you can't wake up without going to bed. So there's a rebirth in the term awakening. Do you know that kind of way?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, we used to think when the sun went down, that was it. Like, we had to get the priest to say the right prayer so the sun would come back up in the morning. That's kind of how literal we took things. Or, consciousness died when you went to sleep, and then rebirth when you wake up again with the sun. So that's a powerful story of how easy it could go the other way as well. Some just get severely depressed, and then just their last few years is just hell for them and hell for their families. And it's inspiring when people are the complete opposite attitude. Like, this is my new lease on life. Like, it sometimes it takes the death sentence, and we all have a death sentence. That's it's just a matter of time, and it really is. Like,
it's funny. Like, I mean, pick an arbitrary age. Right, I'm going to ask you, what age do you think you'll die at?
I probably have an age somewhere in my head. Like, I'll be happy if I get to whatever number, 80.
80. It's funny, I was thinking 80 just as you said it. So let's say you're going to live to 80, okay? The thought experiment is figure out how many days that is. Because all of a sudden, when it's only 4,500. Fuck. Yeah. I thought it'd be closer to 20,000. Because you get into 80, there's nothing tangible about it. Yeah, you put it into fucking days. You put it into a language that you can understand. And even days mightn't be good enough, because between now and the time you're 80 might be 5,000 days, whatever. But somebody puts that into weekends.
Yeah. It's even less again.
Or if you, let's say it's 5,000 days. Okay, so let's say it's 6,000 days. So a third of that you're asleep. So it's only 4,000 days of being awake
in life.
You're going to spend X amount of that time eating. And going to the toilet, and then you kind of break it down. You're like, fuck.
Better stop watching TV. Des always freaks me out with that as well. It's like, if you watch 3 hours of TV a day, it's like whatever X percentage of your life gone away, because you'll include sleeping as well. You're like, oh fuck, I gotta stop watching that fucking show I'm on.
Am I recalling this right, that the average Irish person watches 24 hours worth of TV in a week?
God, that's all your free time, like. And
yes.
Look, I do. And okay, on some weeks it'd be worse than others, or months I'd go maybe when I'm gone a little bit, whatever, shy or just not exercise or whatever it is, I'm getting a bit fucking depressed and just want to disappear into a narrative, like I'll do it and I can see the comfort in it. I won't, no judgment for people that do it, but jeez, it fucking suck your life away, like it really can.
Well, it's designed to,
like especially Netflix,
to hold your attention. Like it's what the whole thing. We were speaking about a little bit about it before we actually sat down to talk. I was telling you about the set and the different lights and whatever else, and I've gone down a bit of a video production rabbit hole, and little things like I have consciously that camera, our eye level is here. Say my camera is there, and there's a reason it's a little bit lower, because as it's angled up, it makes us look bigger and more authoritative. Authoritative. And there's loads of little kind of tricks that film producers and documentarians and all the rest of it, interviewers, use to say things without saying them, and that's what makes them so fucking manipulative.
It's magic. Like
it is magic. It's literally magic.
Yeah, you can call it, some of it's black magic.
Yes.
It really is. Like, it really is.
But again, like what you keep saying is like, how do you once you know these things, how do you use them for your own good? Do you know that kind of way? Like how can we hijack the machinery? That's the terminology that I think actually came up with when I was chatting to you originally. But how do we take advantage of all these things that we know to better improve?
Yeah. Spread good ideas using that manipulative stuff, like manipulate people in a good way.
Well, you see, it's funny, and I've had this with I have a background in sales, 15 years in sales, business development, and all that kind of crack. And one thing that I learned along the way was, for a start, in order to be a good salesperson, you need to be a bit of a chameleon, a personality comedian, comedian, a personality chameleon, which means that you'll hear this idea of mirroring people. Now, a lot of people take that too far, and they say every time he scratches his head, you scratch your head. But you know, if they're an introverted person, you tone yourself down a little, and if they're an extroverted person, you fucking bring yourself up a little. And if they like mad crazy stories, you give them mad crazy stories, and if they don't like them, you don't give them to them. But when you do that professionally, like I used to hate social events all the more that I've hated them recently, but I hated them. I really hated them when I was in sales and I was out, especially when I was on the road. Because I found myself manipulating people. Like I bump into somebody at a wedding or a funeral or at a party or whatever it was,
sell them something,
and you'd be you've not, you're not looking for their money, but you're morphing to
selling yourself nearly.
It becomes a little who are you then? Who are you? And maybe that's what kind of brought me down the whole spiritual rabbit hole, because I don't know, there's just something about that, and you can see it when you're crafting an email or if you're writing a letter or even a text message. Like if I have to say, if I want to get something across, I'll phrase it differently to you than I will somebody else, and that's just life. But when you study that, because your income depends on it, which is what you do in sales, like the better you become at conversing with people and getting ideas across into people's head, the bigger your bonuses are. So there's a real incentive to become good at it. But there's a real incentive to become really manipulative.
Yes.
And that bleeds into your everyday life, and it can become a bit, in my own head I'm like, Frano, you only fucking said that because you knew how they'd react to it, and you're manipulating them.
Or appeasing or crowd pleasing.
So there's a fine line, I think, to be drawn between kind of being yourself and
knowing your audience.
It's a weird one. Like,
I think we're such social creatures that I think we kind of tend towards, like, I know some of my mates are real fucking high frequency, if you want to call them that. Like they're buzzers, so if I'm around them, they'll be we're talking at this decibel, within 10 minutes it's going up and up and up, and we're like fucking, and Ali's a bit introvert, so she's like, she couldn't get a word in edge.
She's getting closer to the door.
Fucking literally. So I think there's being social creatures, we kind of end up adopting each other's maybe little quaintnesses and whatever. If one person's being loud, I get loud. We kind of I don't know, we're contagious nearly, like.
Well, enthusiasm is contagious, 100%.
Yeah,
And if
yeah.
somebody is, like, if somebody's really extroverted, they're enthusiastic about life, and
Yeah,
that
it
can
affects
be
you. Like,
yes,
or
very much
infectious
so.
laughter.
Yes.
And then the opposite. I think if you're a fucking mopey, depressed cunt, you can be.
Oh, you'll bring down a room.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah,
We've
for
all seen
sure.
it. You're all having the crack, and then that one guy or one girl comes in and it's like, oh, Jesus.
But look, there's a place for them too.
No,
isn't
without a
it?
doubt. But what you're describing there is very natural.
Yeah.
But when you study it,
Manipulation part.
yeah,
of
when
it,
you study it, it gets
yeah.
kind of scary.
Yeah, it's the black magic part. Like,
And there's an element of exactly that in
Con
relation
man,
to thinking about God and spirituality.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you can I don't know. I don't know what the analogy, I don't know what the crossover there is, but there's some crossover. So what you were saying is you and your mates, some of them are high intensity, and then you become high intensity, and that's kind of natural.
Yeah.
But when you've studied the psychology of persuasion,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you start pulling people's fucking strings,
Yeah.
it becomes corrupted. And there's an element of that in relation to being kind of spiritual or being one with God or whatever else.
Yeah.
There's it being natural and you just doing it, and then there's you studying the Vedics and the fucking Egyptians and the Christians, and it all becomes
Bit manipulative, yeah.
Yeah, I
I
don't
see
know.
that, and I don't know. There's something. It's why I think atheists are kind of skeptic about a lot of, especially gurus, or I don't know. I kind of get that vibe off. I used to like enjoy Brian Rose's podcast, but now more and more I kind of during a lot of the stuff during the pandemic, he just kind of coming across as a salesman, like a bit of a confidence man.
Well, he had your man Dan Pena on, and seems ever since that episode, he's started wearing the loud suits and he's running for mayor.
London mayor.
he's-
And look, that's more power to him. Maybe he seems to have an audience that likes him, but there's just something that kind of grates on me, and I think it's that kind of manipulation or something that doesn't seem. And I'm sure maybe he's not even aware of it himself. He might, like, how do you know when you're being genuine or not? Like, that's, I suppose, the dark night of the soul.
Well, I think just in keeping with that specific example, I think he's become formulaic. So he's
yeah,
not.
it's an interview. It's not a podcast. Like,
Yeah, it's not a conversation
Yeah.
as much as what we're trying to have here. He very much has an agenda.
Yeah. Here's the questions I'm going to ask you, kind of crack.
Not even that, but that as well. But
Structure.
I'm here talking to you, and all I really care about is the ideas. But I think, and that's what he was at one point. But I don't know what the fuck happened. But something flipped, and it's become formulaic. So now everything that he says and everything he asks, it seems to be in order to present himself a certain way.
Yeah.
And it's become more about. I suppose it's become more about him than the guest or the content.
Yeah, something. Yeah, I think he's. Yeah, oh look, we won't go down to Brian Rose. Yeah, he's an interesting character, but yeah, I think it was the conversations he had with David Icke that just kind of done him in for me. And I actually appreciate David Icke more so than Brian Rose, out and out conspiracy theorist. If nobody's ever heard of him, he's worth a worth a rabbit hole. Definitely, it's interesting. He'd make you think, that's for sure.
One thing that blows me away about him is that I can. Like, what do I think about him? I think he's insane. But when I sit down and listen to him, I find myself just kind of nodding along.
You're right. You're right.
You're right.
We get the lizards.
He loses me at lizards, man. I'm not going to lie to you. He's lost me at lizards.
Look at you've got a hypothalamus, the lizard brain. So maybe he's fucking, without psychologizing his wackiness too much, maybe he's. You know, I'd say he'd probably say something more like that himself now. That he's talking about the lizard brain, the kind of the brain that's
has he done that? Because for the longest time he was full on lizard people.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, I think in more recent times he's kind of pulled back away from that. That's what I found really disappointing with Brian Rose. He didn't kind of. Didn't seem like a very honest conversation. Like he just was asking certain questions and framing it a certain way that just it wasn't a real dialogue at all. It was a way of getting £1 million out of all of his fans, as far as I could see.
Again, he had an agenda.
Yeah,
and the agenda wasn't let's have a really interesting conversation.
Yeah, and I don't think David Icke has. I think David Icke's agenda, to be fair to him, is people like nearly what we've been talking about. Find the source, find God. Like I think a lot of what he says is find God. Now he's got all his own other wacky theories on top of that, but I think a lot of what he says is there's fundamental truth in it. And look, maybe there's a bit of narcissism there too. Of what's the quote I heard before? Psychedelic narcissism. So people who've taken psychedelics and then start thinking they're God, basically, which is probably what I sound like as well. But,
yeah, well, no, I don't think that you do, but I can certainly see where that danger is.
Yeah.
And it's like anybody who finds God, however they found it, whether they meditated in a cave for 6 months, or they took enough acid or psilocybin or whatever it was.
You can become a bit evangelical, or you can become a bit whatever, psychedelophile, or you can definitely just have your own ideas and not listen to anybody else, kind of thing. Like, you have all the answers.
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
Lord Almighty. Whereas, I think the real wise people that have all the answers generally, keep their mouth shut to a large extent. They'll talk. Words are no problem for them. If you want to talk to them, talk to you. But they'll tell you it's all, you need to discover these things for yourself. Like,
yeah, I find that the wisest people that I know tend to ask more questions than they do
give answers,
espouse statements or give answers.
Or if they give you answers, that answer just leaves you with more questions.
Yes,
like, it's never here's definitive 1 + 1 = 2. Like, if you want that, stick to mathematics or physics or something. I don't know how we got into David Ickenberg.
And lizard people.
Looks like.
Brother, I'm going to wrap it up with that.
Yeah, it's been amazing.
We might do, I don't know here, we'll give it a quick check.
What time is it? Lost all sense.
Just over the 3 hour mark.
Wow, class.
That was lovely.
Awesome.
I'm hoping to do loads more of this.
Cool.
I'm hoping to get you back on.
Cool.
We might actually do what we said we'd do at the outset. Remember, we said we'd cut it and we'd talk about different things.
COVID.
But again, there's some COVID. Yeah, Jesus. We'll do an episode on COVID.
Yeah,
one of these days. Yeah. But
I'll bring notes.
Yeah, no, brother, it's been an absolute pleasure. Fucking elbow bump.
But,
cheers, brother, and we'll chat you in the next one.
Take care.